Chapter 1778. Everyone was shaken to the core as their expressions changed. Tang Zheng's experience was too thrilling, especially when the Empyrean fairy sacrificed herself to save him. Everyone's hearts were in their throats as they looked at the Empyrean fairy with gratitude. The Empyrean fairy's expression was indifferent, as if they were not talking about her. There was no doubt. The Empyrean fairy did not need to do anything else. Just the fact that she sacrificed herself to save Tang Zheng was enough to win everyone's respect. The Emperor of Heaven looked at his daughter with gratification and said, "Yarrow, Father is happy that you have such courage." The Empyrean fairy looked deeply at the Emperor of Heaven and said, "This is my own choice and I have also benefited greatly. Not only have I understood my heart, my cultivation has also increased by leaps and bounds." The Emperor of Heaven had always been curious about his daughter's cultivation. He had a feeling that he could not see through it and hurriedly asked, "Yarrow, what realm have you reached?" "Ninth grade Mahayana." "Ah." The Emperor of Heaven cried out in surprise and joy, "You have also reached the 9th grade Mahayana in such a short time." Could it be? The Empyrean fairy guessed her father's thoughts and nodded, "Indeed. Although I saved him, I have also benefited greatly. My cultivation is one of the benefits." The Emperor of Heaven smacked his lips and said with emotion, "Fortune is hidden within misfortune and fortune is dependent upon misfortune. It is really hard to explain in a few words." Everyone knew that the 9 Yang Saint body and 9 Yin Saint body were fatal physiques that could easily lead to death. However, once one broke through the life and death restriction, the benefits were also great. The 9th grade Mahayana was a realm that many people dreamed of. It was not something that could be achieved through hard work. It required a great opportunity. The Emperor of Heaven had spent many years and effort to reach this step. He never thought that his daughter would be able to reach it by saving someone. All sorts of feelings welled up in the Emperor of Heaven's heart. Suddenly, his heart trembled as he looked at Tang Zheng with sparkling eyes. "Since Yarrow has reached the 9th grade of the Mahayana realm, what about you?" "I'm already at the Saint realm." "Saint realm?" the Emperor of Heaven exclaimed. The others were confused and looked at Tang Zheng in confusion because they had never heard of such a realm. "What's the Saint realm?" Yi Dingdang was very curious and couldn't wait to ask. Before Tang Zheng could answer, the Emperor of Heaven couldn't help but ask, "How does the Saint plane feel?" The Emperor of Heaven was already at the 9th grade of the Mahayana realm. He had a feeling that there was another realm above the 9th grade of the Mahayana realm, but it was too illusory. He couldn't touch it at all. However, it was different this time. Tang Zheng had actually reached the Sage realm. This had given him great encouragement. He couldn't wait to know all the information about the Saint realm. Tang Zheng glanced at him faintly and said, "After reaching the Saint realm, everything in the world will change." "Really?" Tang Zheng smiled but didn't say anything. "Obviously," he agreed. "I don't know when I'll reach the Saint realm." The others couldn't help but ask, "Tang Zheng, you haven't said what the Saint realm is." Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Above the 9th grade of the Mahayana realm, there is another magical realm, which is the Saint realm." "Wow!" Exclamations rang out as they stared at Tang Zheng. "You're already in the Saint realm. That's too great. Then no one in this world is your opponent, right?" Tang Zheng didn't dare to be arrogant and said, "The world is so big and so magical. Even if I'm in the Saint realm, I may not be invincible." "You're too modest." Many people didn't quite believe it and subconsciously believed that he was the first in the world. "Then what are you going to do next?" "I'm going to the sky beyond heaven." Everyone's heart trembled. They understood that the sky beyond heaven was a top priority. Xiao Bai was still in the sky beyond heaven. They didn't know what the situation was like. "There's something I haven't had time to tell you. During the time you were away, the Yang family came several times to inquire about Yang Qingyi." Mu Hongyang said worriedly. "Yang Qingyi?" Tang Zheng moved his head and his consciousness was immersed in the heaven realm. After Yang Qingyi was possessed by the heavenly Tao, she was swallowed into the heaven realm by the black hole. From then on, Tang Zheng didn't pay much attention to her. After all, she was in the heaven realm and couldn't jump around at all. Yang Qingyi sat cross-legged in the heaven realm. Suddenly, She opened her eyes and looked at the 9 heavens. She smiled meaningfully and said, Tang Zheng, you're finally here again. Obviously, she had already sensed Tang Zheng. Yang Qingyi, you've been trapped here for so long. Have you reflected? Tang Zheng asked. Yang Qingyi said disdainfully, reflect? Why should I reflect? This is your mistake, not mine. You imprisoned me here and went against the heavenly Tao. In the future, you will be punished by the heavenly Tao. Tang Zheng was already a sage realm cultivator and had a deeper understanding of the heavenly Tao. He said, I'll wait and see how the heavenly Tao punishes me. But you don't repent. Don't you worry about your family? They're so worried about you. I have the heavenly Tao. Everything else is illusory. Yang Qingyi said firmly. You're really crazy. Tang Zheng said helplessly. Tang Zheng, don't just talk nonsense. What kind of ability is it to imprison me here? If you have the guts, let's fight one-on-one and see who's stronger. Yang Qingyi shouted without restraint. During this period of time, she had carefully investigated the heaven realm and tried to escape, but in the end, she gave up. Because all of this was futile. The heaven realm was a cage. No matter how powerful she was, she couldn't escape. Thus, she set her sights on Tang Zheng. If he also entered the heaven realm, would she be able to find a way to capture him and force him to take her out of the heaven realm? She deliberately shouted to provoke Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was about to refuse, but suddenly, his heart moved, and he said, All right, I'll fulfill your wish. A light flashed, and a person appeared in front of Yang Qingyi. He looked at her with a smile and said, Yang Qingyi, didn't you want to see me? This person was Tang Zheng. However, it wasn't the real Tang Zheng. It was his Yuanying doppelganger. However, it was exactly the same as Tang Zheng. Yuanying could pass through the heaven realm on his own. This was something that even Tang Zheng couldn't do. This was a divine ability that Tang Zheng comprehended in a flash of inspiration. Coincidentally, Yang Qingyi became a test subject. It was a good opportunity to test Yuanying's strength. Yang Qingyi didn't know that this was Yuanying's doppelganger. There was a proud smile hidden in the depths of her eyes. She provoked, Tang Zheng, you're finally willing to show yourself. Yuanying said, I'm standing in front of you. Didn't you want to fight one-on-one? I'll give you one more chance. If you fail, what will you do? Yang Qingyi bit her lips and said, You'll have to have that kind of strength first. As soon as her voice fell, she activated her power. With a rumble, a huge gully appeared in the ground. It went straight to Yuanying's feet. Yuanying's feet became a void. He stood in the air and looked at Yang Qingyi with a smile that wasn't a smile. Yang Qingyi's attack naturally didn't stop there. An earth-shattering power came from all directions. It was like a giant palm, fiercely slapping towards Yuanying. Yuanying raised his hand and swept it out. It seemed like a gentle breeze, but it had a destructive power. In an instant, those attacks were completely disintegrated. The huge power strangled Yang Qingyi. Yang Qingyi tried to resist, desperately activating her power. However, all of this was over in an instant. Chapter 1779. Yang Qingyi stared blankly at Tang Zheng and muttered to herself in disbelief, How is this possible? How could I lose? She had thought that she would definitely be able to defeat Tang Zheng after she had rested and honed her strength. Unfortunately, all of this was just her wishful thinking. She did not care about her exposed skin and did not know what to do. Her eyes were filled with despair. Yuanying looked at her and shouted, Do you still not know how to repent? Yang Qingyi's eyes lit up and she shouted hysterically, Why should I repent? You will be punished by the heavens. Yuanying shook his head and said regretfully, Unfortunately, you are so stubborn. You deserve to die. With that said, he made a grabbing motion with his hand. Like a rootless duckweed, Yang Qingyi flew into the nascent soul's hand with a whoosh. A desperate scream resounded through the heavens. Yang Qingyi gradually lowered her head in Yuanying's hand. Tang Zheng was stunned. He did not expect Yuanying to do this. At the last moment, Yuanying actually broke free from his control and seemed to have her own consciousness. Let go. Yang Qingyi was after all a member of the Yang family. Tang Zheng did not have the determination to kill her. In the heavens, an invisible storm swept towards Yuanying. Yuanying waved his hand and an invisible force struck back. Boom! A huge whirlpool suddenly formed and stirred up the airflow in the heavens. Yuanying did not move. As for Yang Qingyi in his hand, she was already dead. Tang Zheng stared blankly at this scene and did not know what to do. Yuanying was actually going against him. What was going on? That was his Yuanying, which was equivalent to his clone. How could she be his enemy? What is going on with you? Yuanying's face revealed a fanatical expression as she said, "You have the heavenly realm, yet you let it develop on its own. What a waste. This is another world. If you don't know how to change it, then let me do it. You want to transform the heaven realm? Yes, you and I are one, so I naturally have to share your burden. Besides, you're too kind, so I'll do the killing for you." Yuanying casually glanced at Yang Qingyi on the ground. With a wave of her hand, a mass of energy enveloped Yang Qingyi. In an instant, Yang Qingyi turned into scattered light spots, drifting with the wind and disappearing into the heaven realm. "He's already dead, so let's just treat him as fertilizer," Yuanying said lightly. Tang Zheng was shocked. This Yuanying was as different as heaven and earth from him. He had once fantasized about fighting side by side with Yuanying and winning every battle. Now it seemed that Yuanying was not on the same side as him at all. He was already thankful that Yuanying did not drag him down. "I don't believe that I can't deal with you. Come out." Tang Zheng made a decision. How could he be forced to submit by Yuanying? He immediately used his great divine ability and a whirlpool appeared in the heaven realm. A huge suction force enveloped Yuanying. He slowly rose into the air and flew towards the whirlpool. Tang Zheng wanted to drag Yuanying out of the heaven realm. As long as he returned to the human world, he believed that he had a way to deal with Yuanying. After Yuanying arrived in the heaven realm, Tang Zheng discovered that the connection between him and Yuanying had weakened. This was definitely because of the two worlds. Yuanying was incomparably calm as she said lightly, "If I don't leave the heaven realm, you won't be able to make me leave." As soon as he finished speaking, Yuanying waved his fingers. A few bursts of energy flew out from his fingertips and hit the whirlpool. With a boom, the whirlpool shattered into pieces. Yuanying floated down lightly and finally landed on the Tree of Life. He sighed and said, "Tree of Life, from now on, you should quickly grow." He flicked his 10 fingers and drew the energy in the heaven realm. Bursts of pure energy converged towards the Tree of Life. Immediately, the Tree of Life was irrigated by the pure energy. It was like a seedling that had been fertilized and grew rapidly. The roots of the Tree of Life extended to 108,000 miles. The main stem pierced through the clouds and covered the sky. A ray of light gushed out from the Tree of Life. In an instant, the heaven realm was covered in green trees and turned into a green world. "Don't you think I did better than you?" Yuanying asked proudly. Tang Zheng was silent. He had always been negligent in managing the heaven realm, but Yuanying had done a better job than him. The heaven realm had undergone earth-shaking changes. "I will make the heaven realm a true great world, a great world that the human world, the ghost realm, the dragon realm and the sky beyond heaven cannot compare to," Yuanying announced proudly. "You can deal with the matters outside in peace." Tang Zheng had mixed feelings, but he could not do anything to Yuanying. His consciousness had no choice but to withdraw from the heaven realm. However, there was a faint worry between his brows. When he walked out of the room, he discovered that there was one more person at home, Yang Potian. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat, guessing that he must have come to inquire about Yang Qingyi's whereabouts again. When Yang Potian saw Tang Zheng, he was overjoyed. He did not expect that Tang Zheng would actually return, and anxiously stood up to welcome him. "Young Master Tang, this is great, to see you again." Tang Zheng squeezed out a smile on his face. It was extremely unnatural as he said, "Yeah, long time no see." The others looked at Tang Zheng and noticed the subtle change on his face. "Young Master Tang, I came to ask," Yang Potian said impatiently. Tang Zheng waved his hand, interrupted him, and said, "I know why you came, Yang Qingyi." Yang Potian's expression turned cold, and asked nervously, "What happened to her?" "You're dead." The matter of the heaven realm was his secret. Even if the other party was Yang Potian, he would not casually tell him. Moreover, Yuanying's actions were a hidden danger. If others were to find out, what if they used this to deal with him? He had to be on guard. Dead. Yang Potian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Although he was already mentally prepared, when he truly heard this news, it was still difficult for him to conceal his grief. Yang Qingyi was his daughter after all. The blow of a white-haired person sending off a black-haired person was incomparably painful. Yang Potian took a deep breath and said, I know. Ever since she walked on this path, I knew that it would be difficult to escape this ending. Elder Yang, I'm sorry. Tang Zheng said in shame. Yang Potian waved his hand and said, It's not your fault. I'm already very grateful that you're able to tell me this news. Currently, Tang Zheng was powerful and invincible, but he did not touch the Yang family. Even if Yang Qingyi was his enemy, he still cared about their old friendship. Yang Potian was a reasonable person, he would not cause trouble for no reason. My condolences. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh. 1,000 words were unable to appease Yang Potian's emotions, so he decided not to say anything else. This old man will take his leave. Yang Potian cupped his hands and left dejectedly. When the others saw this, they immediately surrounded him and asked him what was going on. Tang Zheng's expression kept changing, he shook his head and sighed faintly. He did not want to say anything, as this matter had affected him quite a bit. Something happened in southern Yunnan. Chapter 1780. Wu Junshan's panicked cry attracted the attention of everyone in the room. Tang Zheng frowned and asked in a deep voice, What happened in Dianan? Wu Junshan said, I just received news from Wu that the 100,000 mountains in Dianan is completely surrounded by yin qi. It's like hell on earth. Once humans get close, they will disappear. There have already been cases of humans disappearing. Tang Zheng's expression suddenly changed. His eyes narrowed into slits. He said meaningfully, the 100,000 mountains is filled with yin qi. I'm afraid this matter is related to the ghost realm. That's what we guessed too. Then what about Li Xiaotian? Isn't she in Dianan? She can freely enter and exit the ghost realm. How did she do it? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Li Xiaotian was a ghost realm traveler and cultivated the Xitigaba Sutra. She had a deep relationship with the Dezang of Gugurio. She should have a way. Wu Junshan had always been critical of Li Xiaotian. After all, she was once the holy maiden of the Li Palace. But at this moment, all of these prejudices disappeared. Li Xiaotian stood out at the critical moment. This courage alone made Wu Junshan have a whole new level of respect for her. Moreover, Li Xiaotian was his son's woman. With all of these factors mixed together, Wu Junshan naturally changed his view. Li Xiaotian also entered the 100,000 mountains and disappeared without a trace. Wu Junshan said in disappointment, Wu was going to enter the 100,000 mountains, but I stopped her in time. I understand. Tang Zheng's expression became gloomier. Then I'll go to Dianan to investigate. I want to go too. The others were eager to give it a try and volunteered. Tang Zheng glanced around and said, No, the ghost realm is not like other places. Once humans get close, they will be hurt. What's more, the 100,000 mountains is already filled with yin qi. I don't know what happened. Looking at everyone's disappointed eyes, Tang Zheng encouraged, Don't worry, I'll go investigate first. If I really need your help, I'll definitely summon you. All right. Everyone was helpless and could only bitterly agree. I'm leaving. Tang Zheng left as soon as he finished speaking. He had already disappeared from where he stood. In Dianan, the area covered by the celestial chess had undergone tremendous changes. It had become a paradise for martial artists. Martial artists from all over the world had gathered here, borrowing the power of the stars in the celestial chess to transform themselves and improve their cultivation by leaps and bounds. As soon as Tang Zheng arrived in the sky above Dianan, he saw many martial artists flying in the air. Ordinary people were already used to it and continued to do their own things step by step. Although there were many martial artists, the public security in Dianan had always been very good. This was all thanks to the joint management of Wu and Li Xiaotian. In the past, There were martial artists who stirred up trouble. After killing one as a warning to others, these people became obedient. Moreover, everyone knew that Tang Zheng was behind Dianan, an invincible expert. If he blindly made trouble and provoked Tang Zheng into taking action, then he could only cry. In addition, they had indeed obtained tangible benefits in Dianan. Their skills had greatly increased, and it was a world of difference from before. Most people were unwilling to give up this benefit. The other martial artists saw Tang Zheng and realized that he was flying on his sword. His aura was completely different from other martial artists. Cultivator. The martial artists cried out in surprise and pointed at him. They did not recognize that this person was Tang Zheng. After Tang Zheng reached the Saint Realm, although his appearance did not change, his aura had undergone a tremendous change. Those who were familiar with him could not recognize him at all. Moreover, Tang Zheng had caused a great commotion in the past, but ordinary people had not seen him before. It was reasonable that they did not recognize him. Tang Zheng ignored these people and directly landed in a direction. This was the border between Dianan and the 100,000 Mountains. Wu and Li Xiaotian chose this place as their headquarters. They could control Dianan and monitor the situation in the 100,000 Mountains, killing two birds with one stone. This person went to that place. The crowd exclaimed and looked in the direction where Tang Zheng disappeared. For a moment, his identity was on the verge of being revealed. There were few cultivators in Dianan, and he went to that place. His aura was so mysterious. Who else could it be except for the legendary Tang Zheng? Many people became excited. Tang Zheng had countless fans in Dianan. After all, what he had done had benefited the martial artists. It's a pity that I didn't chase after him and ask for an autograph. Even if there was no autograph, I would not have lived in vain if I looked at him closely. The others echoed and looked in that direction and sighed. He came here at this time. It must be related to the 100,000 Mountains. A smart person said thoughtfully. Great, the 100,000 Mountains is full of yin qi. We can't get close. He can definitely solve this problem. Yes, we can't go into the mountains recently, and we can't pick herbs. This has delayed a lot of cultivation progress. The 100,000 Mountains had become the back garden of Dianan. Usually, many martial artists would go into the mountains to pick herbs. The 100,000 Mountains had nurtured many natural treasures and all kinds of rare herbs, which had become the favorite of martial artists. They used these herbs to improve their cultivation. This was just like how cultivators refined pills to improve their skills. Naturally, martial artists were also developing in this direction. Before Tang Zheng landed, several figures rushed to the sky to meet him. Who is it? Tang Zheng did not care as his heart burned with anxiety. With a thought, like a ray of light, he passed through the middle of these people and descended. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Waves of mighty star power attacked from all directions. This was the activation of the celestial chess. If it was an ordinary person facing this situation, they could only surrender. However, Tang Zheng's figure moved. He was incomparably agile and passed through the star power without any injury. The people around were shocked. These were all Wu and Li Xiaotian's trusted aides. Among them, there was no lack of former members of the Li Palace. They finally recognized Tang Zheng and exclaimed, "It's a scarred master, we pay our respects to a scarred master." Hualala. A large group of people knelt down. The others also seemed to have woken up from a dream. So he was the legendary person, the true master of Dianan. No wonder he could come and go as he pleased and was not afraid of the power of the celestial chess. Only this person could do this so easily. Everyone get up. Where is Marshall? Tang Zheng went straight to the point and asked. Everyone respectfully stood up. Before they could answer, a burst of fragrant wind blew over from afar. A figure flashed and Marshall was already standing in front of him. You're here. Marshall stared at Tang Zheng with sparkling eyes. Thousands of words turned into this simple and plain sentence. Tang Zheng held her hand and nodded heavily. I'm here. She looked around and saw that everyone else was staring at her. She hurriedly took a deep breath and went straight to the point. You're here for the 10,000 huge mountains, right? Tang Zheng knew that the matter was urgent and did not argue. He nodded and said, "Yes, take me to understand the situation first." "Let's go." Marshall soared into the air, her posture light and graceful, like a dancing butterfly. She grabbed Tang Zheng's hand and flew straight into the clouds. Chapter 1781. The 10,000 Mountains was filled with a black smoke-like yin qi. It coiled around the 10,000 mountains, causing the 10,000 mountains to look completely different. The two of them floated in the air above the 10,000 mountains. Marshall said worriedly, "We have no way to go deep inside. Otherwise, we will encounter danger." Li Xiaotian's strength is special. She went deep into the 10,000 mountains, but there was no news of her at all. Tang Zheng's face darkened as he looked down and said, "Let's go, I'll bring you down. With me by your side, you don't have to worry about this yin qi." Marshall had long wanted to take the risk and investigate, but the others had advised her against it, so she had no choice but to give up. Tang Zheng held Marshall's hand and directly descended into the 10,000 mountains, entering deep into the strands of yin qi. But strangely, the yin qi automatically parted to the side, unable to get close to Tang Zheng. Marshall could not hide his excitement as he held onto Tang Zheng's hand tightly, as if he had found his backbone. This was his man, and these difficulties were not difficult for him at all. However, the yin qi did not give up. It still tried to approach Tang Zheng and Marshall, but an invisible force resisted it, causing everything to be in vain. The road ahead was still very blurry, and they could not see any further. "Open." Tang Zheng frowned, and with a shout, he pointed forward with his finger, and an earth-shattering power rushed out, causing the yin qi to disperse. The world regained its brightness, and they could finally see the distance clearly. The two of them continued forward for a while, and Tang Zheng discovered that the yin qi in one direction was getting stronger and stronger. He had a premonition that something must have happened. Suddenly, the two of them stopped in front of a cliff and stared blankly at the cliff beneath their feet. A dense yin qi came from below. "The source is down there." Marshall pointed down and said. Tang Zheng nodded and said, "Let's go down, I want to see what's going on." Whiz. The two of them leaped and descended in a straight line. After passing through layers of yin qi, the two of them finally landed at the bottom of the cliff. Tang Zheng was not unfamiliar with this place, because the inner demons were released from here. The bronze coffin was still quietly placed in Tang Zheng's Sumeru world. What kind of strange things would happen here now? Tang Zheng could not figure out the truth no matter how hard he tried. He could only explore it step by step. However, when his feet stepped on the soft ground, his heart skipped a beat, and he had a strange feeling. He looked around, but there was no trace of yin qi. No, that yin qi is just a smokescreen. There's no yin qi at the core, but another kind of energy. This energy is a little familiar. His eyes widened as countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Suddenly, a light flashed through his mind, and a look of horror appeared in his eyes. Savage aura. He had almost forgotten about this power because he subconsciously believed that this power had completely disappeared from this world. Why did it rise from the ashes and reappear? Of course, he didn't know that a savage aura had been left behind on Mount Tai. Tang Zheng couldn't figure it out, but his heart was already in his throat. During the Battle of Mount Tai, the savage aura had almost revived the Yellow Emperor. That battle was still fresh in his mind. Could it be that the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates have not completely disappeared, and after giving up, they have come back again? Tang Zheng couldn't figure it out, so he could only carefully move forward, not forgetting to remind Wu, "In a while, stay by my side. If anything happens, you can't rush to the front, I'll take care of everything." Wu saw the worry between Tang Zheng's brows and nodded heavily, saying, "I understand." She also knew about the savage aura and asked, "Why would the savage aura appear in the 10,000 huge mountains?" "I believe the answer will be revealed soon." Tang Zheng grabbed Marshall's hand and quickly walked forward. The surrounding savage aura became more and more intense. Tang Zheng's eyes were like torches as he closely observed the movements and changes in his surroundings. There were quite a few changes at the bottom of the canyon, completely different from the last time Tang Zheng came here. Suddenly, a strange sound came from beneath their feet. Tang Zheng and Marshall staggered and almost fell to the ground because their feet were bound. What is it? Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he stared at his feet. A piece of black rock turned into a chain, firmly locking the two's ankles. There really is something fishy. Tang Zheng could clearly feel a strong savage aura from the chains. He suddenly lifted his feet and with a catcher sound, the chains broke. The two of them broke free from the chains and had no choice but to be even more careful. Whoosh! A huge rock fell down from above, smashing towards the top of their heads. Break! Tang Zheng let out a shout, and an invisible force soared into the sky. With a loud boom, the rocks shattered and scattered in all directions. Tang Zheng didn't even have time to catch his breath before a series of crashing sounds could be heard. The rocks quickly gathered together and turned into a stone man. Huh! Tang Zheng's eyes lit up as he couldn't help but remember the four symbols. These rocks actually have life. Could it be because of the savage aura? Before Tang Zheng could analyze the result, the stone man raised his fist high up and smashed down fiercely. The fist left the stone man's arm and like a cannonball, it flew straight towards Tang Zheng. Your life is very good, right? Let's see how you're going to revive now. Tang Zheng suddenly waved his arm. With a boom, the stone man turned into a pile of powder and scattered with the wind. As for the fist, it also disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng curled his lips in disdain. He already had a premonition that there was someone behind all of this. Since the other party liked to play hide and seek, then he might as well not play with them. He roared, "Why are you pretending to be a ghost? Quickly show yourself." Rumble. As soon as his voice fell, the mountains shook and countless rocks fell from the sky. A light barrier soared into the sky and firmly covered the two of them. The two of them were safe and sound, but when they looked up, they couldn't hide the shock in their eyes. This canyon was actually alive. Countless rocks flew in all directions and gradually formed a huge stone man. It looked down from above like a huge monster. The two of them stood at the foot of this huge monster. They looked extremely small. The huge pressure caused Wu's expression to change. He couldn't help but tighten his grip on Tang Zheng's hand. Tang Zheng snorted, his thick eyebrows raised, and said, "I want to see what kind of medicine you're selling in your gourd." The hidden profound sword, flatten everything, shio. An ear-piercing sword cry soared into the sky. Wherever the hidden profound sword passed, the sword tip was invincible. It collided with the rocks and created intense sparks. However, how could the rocks resist the hidden profound sword's tip? With a rumbling sound, the rocks were torn apart. Suddenly, a delicate shout came from the sky. "Tang Zheng, you're here to ruin my plans again." Chapter 1782. Tang Zheng and Wu looked at that person in disbelief, and exclaimed at the same time, "It's you. Haha, you didn't expect that, did you? You must have thought that I was dead, but I'm still alive and well. I'm not willing, how can I die? Yi Meiyu, you've done all sorts of bad things. You didn't even let your own family off. What else are you unwilling to accept?" Tang Zheng mocked. So this person was actually Yi Dingdang. If Yi Dingdang saw her, he would definitely be very angry. Ever since Yi Dingdang returned to the Ye family, Yi Meiyu had been targeting her everywhere. Later on, he chased after Nightmare to cultivate the heart's dream traceless technique. He thought that he was no longer in this world, but he never thought that he was actually hiding in the 10,000 huge mountains. What was with the savage aura around her? Tang Zheng and Wu Zhuozhua stared at her, but did not see any clues. Haha, they are not my family. I no longer have a family, I am alone. Back then, in the Battle of Mount Tai, you won, but you did not know that the savage aura had not truly disappeared. Now, I will let you experience the power of the savage aura. Yi Meiyu was in a state of madness. Back then, when she was released by Yi Xuanji, she was in a daze and had already lost her goal. She never thought that she would coincidentally arrive at the peak of Mount Tai and accidentally discover the remnant savage aura. Then, she thought of a way to use the savage aura. She was indeed powerful. She had actually merged with the savage aura and became one with it. From then on, her strength had greatly increased, and she had even snuck into the 10,000 huge mountains. This was because she knew that this vast mountain range was the best place to hide. Tang Zheng's power was like the sun in the sky, and his eyes were everywhere. It was not easy for her to hide, and only the 10,000 huge mountains could hide. After she fused with the great desolate Qi, she gradually discovered some mysteries. The savage desolate Qi was the Qi at the beginning of the world, and was the source of the Qi of heaven and earth. Whether it was the spirit Qi of heaven and earth or the yin Qi of the ghost realm, they were all evolved from the savage Qi. After all, her cultivation was still shallow, so she was unable to completely control the savage Qi. Thus, when she reached the later stages of her cultivation, the savage Qi leaked out. Yi Meiyu was very clear that the savage aura would easily be exposed and attract the attention of others, so she disguised the savage aura as yin Qi. There was a primordial heavenly tomb in the 100,000 mountains, so the yin energy was extremely dense, so it was not too conspicuous. However, she didn't expect that the aura of the desolate mountains would increase day by day, and the yin Qi would also increase day by day. It almost filled the entire 100,000 mountains. As soon as Yi Meiyu finished speaking, a savage aura gushed out and filled the entire area. Rumble. The stone giant raised its foot and stepped towards Tang Zheng and Wu. The two of them felt their heads darken as a terrifying pressure descended from the sky. Instead of retreating, Tang Zheng roared, "Break!" The hidden sword of Xian soared into the sky and turned into a sharp ray of light, slashing towards the stone golem. Catcher! With a burst of sparks, the stone golem's leg was cut off. The corners of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up into a smile. However, it instantly froze because the amputated leg's attack did not slow down and was still ferociously attacking him. Haha, how can this little trick stop me? Yi Meiyu laughed maniacally. Tang Zheng snorted. The hidden sword of Xianzong's sword light was as bright as a star. It quickly slashed out, and with a boom, the gigantic leg was shattered after being struck. Yi Meiyu roared angrily, "Stubborn, stubborn, let's see how long you can last." Her eyes were scarlet red. With a wave of her hands, countless boulders flew over from all directions, turning into a huge mountain. The stone golem stood at the peak of the mountain and descended from the sky. The sky had already turned completely pitch black. The canyon beside him had long since disappeared. The mountain rocks had all flown into the air and the surroundings had turned into a plain. Wu's face tensed up as he volunteered and said, "I'll deal with her." Whiz. She was like a rocket as she flew towards the gigantic mountain peak. Boom. Boom. Tang Zheng did not move, and quietly observed Wu's counterattack. It had to be said that her power had advanced by leaps and bounds, and was no longer the same as before. It was a pity that after Yi Meiyu had fused with the savage aura, she was simply not human, which was why her strength was so terrifying. A firefly dares to compete with the sun and moon? Go to hell! Yi Meiyu roared in disdain as the mountain peak fell even faster. Bang! Wu heavily fell to the ground. Tang Zheng immediately supported her and comforted her. "You rest first, I'll do it." Wu stubbornly shook his head and said, "I haven't lost yet." With that, she flew into the sky again. This time, it was completely different from before. Her body was emitting a dense amount of star energy that quickly fluctuated. The air was like boiling water, constantly fluctuating. The power of the stars. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he laughed in his heart. He already understood Wu's intentions. Hua! Above the 9 heavens, the stars flickered, adorning the sky above the 10,000 mountains. Waves of mighty star energy descended from the sky and slowly gathered together, forming a gigantic pillar of light that pierced through the heaven and earth. Whiz! This pillar of light illuminated the 10,000 mountains. The originally dark heaven and earth became bright, like the scorching sun in the sky. Yi Meiyu sensed that something was amiss and raised her head in surprise. When she saw the pillar of light, her expression changed and she blurted out, "What's going on?" Boom! The pillar of light directly struck the mountain peak. With a loud sound, the mountain peak shattered into pieces. However, the power of the stars did not stop there. With a flash of light, the fragments disappeared. They had been refined into air and scattered with the wind. "Let's see what else you can do now," Wu Jie said angrily. This time, She had used the heavenly chess to draw upon the power of the stars. That was why she had such a terrifying power. She had not been stationed in southern Yunnan for long, but she had not been idle for a moment. She had been constantly expanding the range of the power of the stars, which included the 10,000 mountains. Although the heavenly chess only covered a portion of the 10,000 mountains, once it was activated, its power would still be terrifying. A second before the pillar of light hit the mountain peak, Yi Meiyu had escaped in time. Therefore, after the mountain peak and the stone man disappeared, she was not injured. She only appeared to be in a sorry state as she landed far away to the side. After defeating Yi Meiyu's attack, the corner of Wu Jie's mouth curled up into a relieved smile. His legs went weak, his strength was exhausted, and he fell straight to the ground. Tang Zheng anxiously supported her and asked with concern, "Are you all right?" Wu Jie squeezed out a smile and said, "I'm fine, I'm just exhausted." She had used more energy than she could bear. She had used up a lot of energy and could no longer launch a second round of attacks. Tang Zheng checked her body and confirmed that she was fine. Only then did he relax and encourage her, "You did well, leave the rest to me." Looking at the two of them being intimate and not putting her, Yi Meiyu, in their eyes, Yi Meiyu seemed to have gone mad as she shouted hysterically, "I want you to die without a burial ground." Chapter 1783. After Yi Meiyu shouted crazily, a savage aura that covered the sky and covered the earth swept over from all directions. Every blade of grass, every tree, every mountain, and every rock seeped out. This entire area was filled with a savage aura. Tang Zheng remained unmoved. He stared at Yi Meiyu with a burning gaze, and asked, "Where's Li Xiaotian? What did you do to her?" "Hihi, you're confident. Of course I will make her life worse than death. Torturing her is truly an incomparably enjoyable thing." Yi Meiyu proudly showed off. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted, his eyes gradually turned red, his eyes were bloodshot, and he walked towards Yi Meiyu step by step. Yi Meiyu was pleased with herself. She did not put Tang Zheng in her eyes at all. When the two of them looked at each other at a close distance, Yi Meiyu's eyes were as calm as an ancient well. "Where did you hide her?" Tang Zheng asked fiercely. "Do you want to see her?" "Hihi, I'll let you guys meet now. Let's go to the Yellow Springs Road together in a while." Yi Meiyu pointed with her finger, and a savage aura landed on the ground. Kacha. The ground cracked open as if there was an earthquake. A huge ravine appeared in front of him. "This is..." Tang Zheng shivered, he opened his eyes wide and stared straight at the ravine. A familiar figure jumped into his eyes. "Li Xiaotian." Tang Zheng blurted out, involuntarily shouting. Li Xiaotian was on the verge of death. She weakly raised her head, and when she saw Tang Zheng, her eyes lit up, and said, "You're here." Tang Zheng nodded his head heavily, and said, "Yes, I'm here to bring you home. Hold on for a while." Li Xiaotian seemed to have known that this day would come, and said with satisfaction, "I knew you would come to pick me up, I've been waiting for you. It's just that I'm useless and couldn't defeat her. You've already done well enough. None of this is your fault." Tang Zheng's heart was moved as he impatiently wanted to save her. Yi Meiyu saw through Tang Zheng's method and said jokingly, "She's right here, let's see how you save her." Tang Zheng said indifferently, "Yi Meiyu, just now, Marshall used the power of the stars. Do you think the power of the stars is limited to this? You underestimate the power of the stars, underestimate the power of the stars. Now, I will show you the true power of the heavenly chess. In your dreams." Yi Meiyu was completely fearless and took the initiative to attack. Bang bang bang, a stone awl, as sharp as a blade, under Tang Zheng's feet. Tang Zheng soared into the air, and activated the heaven's chess. However, of the heavens, the heavenly of the heaven of the great mountain, but in that second, everything changed. Of the mountain of the heaven of the mountain, of the mountain. This was Tang Zheng, relying on the cultivation of the sage realm. It was completely incomparable. Yi Meiyu sensed that something was amiss, but she did not take it to heart. She commanded the savage qi, and another stone pillar rose into the air, erected around Tang Zheng, like a prison cell, trapping Tang Zheng inside. "You want to trap me? Hehe, you're thinking too beautifully. Tang Zheng laughed in disdain. With a thought, with a rumbling sound, above the 9 heavens, the sky turned dark, but there were no dark clouds. In the pitch-black sky, twinkling stars appeared one after another. These stars continued to flicker, becoming more and more resplendent. They had a power that caused one's heart to tremble in fear. Kacha. A ray of light flew out from one of the stars, and with a trajectory that could be seen with the naked eye, it shuttled through the sky. In an instant, many of the stars were refined into a few lines, forming a pattern. Yi Meiyu looked at this scene suspiciously, unable to guess what Tang Zheng's intentions were. Wu Yi also raised her head and stared at this scene. This was a completely new application of the sky. She was powerless to do anything about it, but she could feel that something was undergoing a tremendous change. Shua. The pattern in the sky finally became clear. It was actually a bow and an arrow, shining like stars as they floated in the sky. Yi Meiyu's pupils constricted as she exclaimed, "What is this?" Finally, she felt that something was amiss. "Attack!" Tang Zheng roared. Whiz! That arrow was like a meteor as it descended from the sky, streaking across the pitch-black sky. Yi Meiyu turned pale with fright and exclaimed, "What the hell is this?" She hurriedly waved her hands, and with a rumble, rocks piled up in front of her, forming a gigantic shield. This shield was incomparably thick, as if it was indestructible. Break! Boom! The arrow struck the shield, causing pieces of gravel to fly into the air, and the arrow also disappeared into thin air. Yi Meiyu heaved a sigh of relief. She had finally managed to defend herself in time, blocking this terrifying attack. However, before she could even catch her breath, a ray of light streaked across the sky, and another arrow pierced through the clouds unexpectedly arrived. Yi Meiyu forced herself to focus, clenching her teeth. She hated Tang Zheng to death, but there was nothing she could do. She had no choice but to quickly respond. Pieces of rocks formed a hard boulder that glowed with light. However, when the arrow hit, the so-called boulder was like a chicken or a dog, unable to withstand a single blow and turned into ashes. Bang bang bang! The stone pillars around Tang Zheng also broke and fell to the ground. Tang Zheng walked out confidently, looked at the dazed Yi Meiyu, and said, "Now you know how powerful the sky chess is." Yi Meiyu's eyes erupted with flames of hatred as she roared, "I am not willing to accept this. I have worked so hard for so long, I will not be defeated just like this." The power of the stars was even more powerful than the savage aura. Yi Meiyu's attack had already collapsed, and was no longer a threat to Tang Zheng. Yi Meiyu glanced at Wu, who was imprisoned in the ravine, and with a flash of inspiration, she roared hysterically, "Tang Zheng, if you want to kill me, then I will make all of you accompany me in death. I will perish together with all of you." Bang! Just as the roar stopped, there was an explosion and Yi Meiyu exploded on the spot, disappearing into thin air. "Hey, what's going on?" Tang Zheng opened his eyes wide in surprise. Wu was also puzzled, and asked in bewilderment, "Tang Zheng, did she commit suicide?" Suicide? Would Yi Meiyu commit suicide? Tang Zheng did not believe it at all. There was definitely something strange going on. Saving people is more important. Tang Zheng ignored it for the time being and ran straight to the ravine, preparing to save Li Xiaotian. As soon as he arrived above the ravine, a blazing wave of air rushed up from the ravine, almost blowing Tang Zheng away. A huge red wave submerged Li Xiaotian. Magma. Tang Zheng recognized this thing at a glance. He was someone who had seen a volcano erupt before, so he knew how powerful it was. If Xiao Bai was here, he would naturally not be afraid of this magma. But the other party was Li Xiaotian. A mournful scream came from the magma, but it gradually became softer. A huge red wave slapped out, and Li Xiaotian completely disappeared. Tang Zheng felt like his liver and guts were about to burst. He roared like a madman, "Li Xiaotian," but there was no reply. "Yi Meiyu, I will tear you into pieces." Chapter 1784. Li Xiaotian had disappeared. He must have been melted by the magma. Tang Zheng's guts were about to burst. That was his lover, a woman who did not hesitate to sacrifice her life to save him. How could he remain calm? His killing intent surged, covering the sky and the earth. A gale suddenly blew up, rising from the ground and sweeping up the magma, trying to tear it into 4 or 5 pieces. Although Yi Meiyu had exploded on the spot and disappeared without a trace, Tang Zheng believed that she did not die, but had instead merged with the magma. The magma and the savage aura fused together and underwent an earth-shattering change. It was no longer a simple magma. Yi Meiyu was the magma, and the magma was Yi Meiyu. The blazing heat wave seemed to be Yi Meiyu's aura, causing people to feel nauseous. Yi Meiyu, go to hell. With a shocking roar, a gale carried the magma and soared into the sky, transforming into a pillar of fire that stretched across the sky. Cracking sounds came out from within. The gale was using its own power to tear the magma apart. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, how does it feel to live a life worse than death? Yi Meiyu's voice suddenly sounded out, extremely arrogant. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted. He had not guessed wrongly, Yi Meiyu had not died at all, but had merged with the magma. Now, her attack power would be even more terrifying. I will let you experience this feeling twice as much. When she dies, I think this feeling will be even more interesting. Yi Meiyu said. However, it was clear who he was referring to. Marshall. After she killed Li Xiaotian, she was still not satisfied and even aimed her spear at Wu. If something were to happen to Wu, it would definitely be a devastating blow to Tang Zheng. Yi Meiyu clearly understood this logic, which was why she was so crazy. How dare you? Tang Zheng roared, his figure flashed, and pounced towards Wu, preparing to protect her. Unfortunately, the heavens were unpredictable. The magma's speed was even faster, turning into a fire dragon. With a flash of fire, its bloody mouth had already bitten down on Wu. Wu had tried to resist, but she was no match for Yi Meiyu. When Tang Zheng saw the despair in Marshall's eyes, his heart felt as if it was being twisted by a knife. He was about to faint as he hysterically shouted, "Don't!" However, it was too late. With a flash of fire, Marshall disappeared into the mouth of the fire dragon. Tang Zheng abruptly stopped, as if someone had cast a spell on him. He floated in the air in a daze, and no sound came out of his wide-open mouth. Hehe, Tang Zheng, if you kill yourself, then I will let you die a quick death. Otherwise, I will torture you to death. Yi Meiyu's voice sounded again, even more arrogant and despotic. She actually wanted Tang Zheng to kill himself. Tang Zheng gradually came back to his senses. His eyes were full of indifference, like a wasteland, without any signs of life. Just one look from him was enough to make people fall into an ice cave. Yi Meiyu, you killed 2 of my beloved women. If I don't kill you, how can I let their souls rest in peace? You brought all of this upon yourself. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you boast that you have a savage aura? Tang Zheng muttered to himself as if he was possessed. There was not the slightest fluctuation in his tone, as if he was speaking to a dead person. Ha ha, Tang Zheng, what can you do to me? Yi Meiyu asked fearlessly. You don't know who you've offended. Your doomsday has already been decided. Tang Zheng's tone was calm, and did not even have the slightest hint of threat. However, when it came out of his mouth, an invisible killing intent spread outwards. Shua. Above the 9 heavens, the stars flickered. The power of the stars descended from the sky, enveloping the entire 10,000 huge mountains. The land seemed to have turned into porridge in the middle of the night. Tang Zheng glanced at the magma fire dragon indifferently and said without batting an eyelid, "Explode." Yi Meiyu was about to retort with a few words of ridicule. Boom. With a loud sound, the power of the stars covered the entire area. The fire dragon had nowhere to run. Roar. Tang Zheng roared towards the sky. It was actually a dragon's roar. His entire body flashed with a golden light, and he had already transformed into a true dragon. The power of the stars in the sky landed on his body, causing the golden dragon scales to become even more dazzling. Whiz. The golden dragon that Tang Zheng had transformed into rushed towards the fire dragon. Countless amounts of star power converged towards the golden dragon, and every time Tang Zheng absorbed a bit of star power, the dragon scales would become even more dazzling. Not long after, the golden dragon seemed to have turned into a sun, illuminating the entire mountain range. It was almost impossible to look straight at it. Boom, boom, boom. The golden dragon and the fire dragon continued to exchange blows. All sorts of lights danced in the air, like a dazzling fireworks show. However, the danger within was not something that ordinary people could imagine or bear. Bang! Suddenly, the tail of the fire dragon was swept by the golden dragon and broke into two halves. It turned into balls of magma and fell down. Unfortunately, before it could fall to the ground, a golden dragon tail swept across it. Sparks flew in all directions and the magma completely dissipated. The fire dragon only had half of its body left. It struggled on the verge of death, but how could it be a match for the golden dragon? After a few rounds, the fire dragon completely exploded, turning into rays of light that filled the sky and completely disappeared. With a flash of golden light, Tang Zheng returned to his human form, but before he could say anything, the scene in front of him changed drastically. Hey! Tang Zheng opened his eyes wide in shock. Suddenly, he remembered something from the past. Yi Meiyu's master was Nightmare, and she had the ability to instantly lure people into dreams. Tang Zheng had seen her heart's dream traceless technique before. He had never thought that he would be affected by this heart's dream traceless technique. After all, his cultivation was no longer what it used to be, and his ability to distinguish was no longer what it used to be. Now, he realized that he had overestimated himself and underestimated Yi Meiyu. After Yi Meiyu had fused with the savage aura, all sorts of divine abilities had undergone a qualitative change. In this world, he was not the only one who had improved, the others had not fallen behind in the slightest. It was precisely because of this mentality that he accidentally entered a dream. Everything that happened just now was just a dream. Li Xiaotian and Wu did not die at all. It was just a dream. When Tang Zheng opened his eyes again, sure enough, Li Xiaotian was still trapped in the ravine, and Wu was also safe and sound. However, both of them did not look too good. Tang Zheng was caught off guard and entered the dream. Their cultivations were far lower than Tang Zheng's, so they naturally did not escape this calamity. They had all experienced the dream once, and it was as if they had died once. The look in their eyes and aura had undergone an earth-shattering change. Yi Meiyu was not far away, but her situation was much worse. She was actually half kneeling on the ground, with a pool of blood in front of her and a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. Tang Zheng had broken her heart's dream traceless technique, causing her to suffer a heavy backlash and almost lose half of her life. She looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief and muttered to herself as if she was possessed, "Impossible, how could you break my heart's dream traceless?" Tang Zheng did not waste any more words with her, his figure flashed, and he had already saved Li Xiaotian from the ravine. When Li Xiaotian was hugged by Tang Zheng, he revealed a relieved smile. Tang Zheng handed Li Xiaotian over to Wu, who quickly supported the weak Li Xiaotian, while Tang Zheng walked step by step towards Yi Meiyu. With every step he took, his killing intent grew stronger. When he arrived in front of Yi Meiyu, his killing intent was overflowing. Chapter 1785. Yi Meiyu retreated in panic. She still did not understand why she had lost so thoroughly, and found it hard to accept this cruel reality. Tang Zheng was filled with killing intent. He gritted his teeth. "Yi Meiyu, you have schemed and used cruel methods. I want to see what other tricks you have up your sleeves." "You. What do you want?" Yi Meiyu asked in panic. Tang Zheng laughed in ridicule. "Don't you think this question is unnecessary? You've been going against me at every turn, and you still expect me to let you go? You really want to kill me?" Yi Meiyu could not believe it. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "Don't think that just because you're a woman, I won't kill you." With that said, a sword light flashed, and the hidden profound sword pierced through the air, directly piercing through her chest. She looked at her chest in disbelief. Blood flowed out along the sword's body, like a string of beads, falling down in a straight line. She could almost feel her life force rapidly leaving her body. Her legs gradually went weak, she could not stand steadily, and she fell backwards. Bang! She crashed heavily onto the ground. Her eyelids were heavy, and she could no longer open them. Yi Meiyu had died, and he only had himself to blame. Wu and Li Xiaotian were filled with lingering fear. If not for Tang Zheng being strong enough, they would have already been killed by Yi Meiyu. Back then, no one would have thought that the young miss of the Ye family would actually reach such a step and cause such a huge storm. How are the two of you? Tang Zheng's attention shifted to his beloved woman, and he looked at Wu and Li Xiaotian with concern. It was a world of difference from the previous decisive killing. Li Xiaotian smiled charmingly. I won't die yet. It's just that a lot of savage aura has entered my body, causing me to suffer unspeakably. Savage aura. Tang Zheng's heart moved. He looked around. The valley was completely filled with the savage aura. Furthermore, the savage aura was currently ownerless, instinctively destroying everything it came into contact with. Boom. A wave of savage aura struck the rocks, causing rocks to fly everywhere, the mountains to shake, and everything to become a mess. Hurry up and leave this place. Yu Mo was shocked. He protected Wu and Li Xiaotian and was about to fly into the sky, when suddenly, his pupils constricted as he saw an inconceivable scene. What kind of person was Tang Zheng? Anything that could make him feel incredulous was definitely no small matter. Wu and Li Xiaotian also looked over and exclaimed, how could this be? The wild aura between heaven and earth surged crazily towards Yi Meiyu's body from all directions, forming a tornado. She slowly rose into the air and was at the center of the storm. Countless wild auras entered her body, and her aura also underwent a tremendous change. Tang Zheng, do you feel that there's a bit of life in her body? Wu's eyes turned cold as he asked suspiciously. It was extremely abnormal for a person who was supposed to be dead to suddenly be alive again. Tang Zheng also noticed this. His expression suddenly changed. Without saying a word, he impatiently rushed out, merged with the mysterious sword, and slashed towards Yi Meiyu. Boom! The tornado formed by the savage qi was like an indestructible barrier, forcing Tang Zheng to retreat. Under the attack of the mysterious sword, it was actually unable to break through. This is bad. The veins on Tang Zheng's forehead popped out as they twitched non-stop. Su su su, he waved his mysterious sword again, trying to break through the tornado. The tornado trembled non-stop, but it was still as strong as before. Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. Just as he was about to activate the heavenly chess, a burst of wild laughter came out from the tornado. Yi Meiyu. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he cried out involuntarily. The tornado gradually disappeared, and Yi Meiyu was actually floating in the air. She was alive again, her long hair fluttering in the wind as she stared at Tang Zheng and the other two with killing intent. Ha ha ha, I really didn't expect that the savage qi would have such an effect. As long as I have the savage qi, I will never die. You will never be able to truly kill me. Resurrection from the dead. This was the worst thing that could happen. Tang Zheng was under a lot of pressure. Hearing Yi Meiyu's arrogant voice, he took a deep breath, suppressed his complicated emotions, and said, Yi Meiyu, if I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time. But I will still be resurrected. What can you do? Yi Meiyu said indifferently. Previously, she did not know that she possessed such a sacred art. Now that she had died once, she understood everything. As long as there was the savage qi, she would have an undying body. Tang Zheng subconsciously thought of the inner demons. Back then, he also had an undying body, and whoever killed him, he could take over the other party's body and revive from the dead. But in the end, he still died. Yu Mo did not believe that Yi Meiyu would not die. Moreover, even if he could not kill her, he could still suppress her. It was just like how the Emperor and Kai Yu joined hands and used the bronze coffin to seal the inner demons. Bronze coffin. Tang Zheng's heart moved. He remembered this item. Wasn't it kept in his Sumeru world? He had never found a use for the bronze coffin and had almost forgotten about it. He never thought that Yi Meiyu would make him think of it again. That's right, the bronze coffin can even seal and suppress the inner demons. I don't believe that it can't deal with Yi Meiyu. When Tang Zheng thought about it, he heaved a sigh of relief, and deliberately provoked Yi Meiyu. You are too arrogant, watch me kill you a second time. Whiz. Tang Zheng flew towards Yi Meiyu, but this time, he did not use the hidden profound sword, and was barehanded. Yi Meiyu scoffed, and did not put him in her eyes at all. He couldn't even kill her with the hidden profound sword, so what could he do with his bare hands? Wu and Li Xiaotian stared at him without blinking. Their hearts were in their throats, but they were powerless to help him. Only now did they realize how terrifying the savage aura was. It could actually bring people back to life. This was a realm that many people dreamed of, but Yi Meiyu had actually done it. If he really couldn't control her, then she would stir up trouble and cause a lot of trouble. The world would probably fall into chaos again. Tang Zheng was also very clear on this point, so he was extremely careful. There was only one chance, and if he missed it, it would be too late to regret it. He saw the madness and disdain in Yi Meiyu's eyes. This was the effect he wanted. The two of them were within reach. Seeing that Tang Zheng had not attacked yet, Yi Meiyu took the initiative to move. She grabbed forward with her big hand, and a tornado formed from the savage aura turned into a long whip, fiercely swinging it over. Now's the time. Tang Zheng acted according to the situation. Sumeru world flashed, and a huge object flew out. Bronze coffin. Yi Meiyu did not understand its meaning, and naturally did not understand Tang Zheng's intentions, so she simply disdained it. Yi Meiyu's vision darkened, as if a dark cloud was pressing down on her. Yi Meiyu curled her lips in disdain. Insignificant skill. The tornado struck the bronze coffin, but it did not move at all. The tornado could not do anything to it at all. Instead, the bronze coffin released a black light, and the tornado was sucked into the bronze coffin, disappearing without a trace. Seeing that, Yi Meiyu's pupils constricted and her expression changed. Chapter 1786. The power of the bronze coffin was terrifying, causing Yi Meiyu to be extremely shocked. She stared at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze and asked, "What the hell is this thing?" Tang Zheng was reassured, and said, "It's a treasure specially made to deal with you. In your dreams." Yi Meiyu snorted angrily. With a shake of her body, she disappeared without a trace, and turned into a surging savage aura. Like an angry dragon, she attacked Tang Zheng. "Keep." Tang Zheng used his sacred art, and the bronze coffin fell from the sky like a huge mountain pressing down. Boom! The savage aura clashed with the bronze coffin, and a loud sound resounded throughout the world. Tang Zheng's eyes flickered, but he quickly calmed himself down. He had to admit, Yi Meiyu's attack was indeed terrifying. He clenched his teeth and continuously channeled his power. The bronze coffin started to glow with a black luster. Whoosh! When the savage aura rushed over again, the black luster quickly trapped the savage aura. The savage aura was no longer able to leave, and was slowly absorbed into the bronze coffin. Yi Meiyu's figure gradually appeared again, but she was no longer able to break free from the bronze coffin. Half of her body had already been sucked into the bronze coffin. "Let me go!" Yi Meiyu screamed hysterically. Unfortunately, Yi Meiyu did not succeed. Instead, she slowly sank into the bronze coffin. Yi Meiyu struggled non-stop, shaking her head. She did not expect that all of this would be in vain. She sank deeper and deeper, leaving only her head behind. She glared fiercely at Tang Zheng and shouted crazily, "Tang Zheng, you can't kill me, what can you do to me?" Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief and laughed, "If I can't kill you, I can trap you. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years. You will spend your life in this bronze coffin. I believe that this kind of loneliness will be very wonderful." "No." Yi Meiyu cried out in fear. She didn't want to be imprisoned. She wanted thousands of people to submit to her. She didn't want to be a lonely prisoner. "That's not up to you." As soon as Tang Zheng finished speaking, Yi Meiyu's head was sucked into the bronze coffin, leaving only her hysterical voice echoing in the air. The bronze coffin slowly closed its lid and landed in the canyon. Tang Zheng and the other two stood quietly outside the bronze coffin, feeling deeply moved. "Yi Meiyu, you brought this upon yourself," Tang Zheng said. "Tang Zheng, quickly let me out. Hurry up." Yi Meiyu's voice came out from the coffin, but it was no longer sharp and ear-piercing. It was extremely weak. "Release you to kill me?" Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. "If you don't let me go, when I leave this damned place, I will also kill you. Furthermore, you will die a miserable death." Yi Meiyu threatened. "Then let's talk about it after you come out." Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders indifferently. The bronze coffin could even suppress the inner demons, so it was more than enough to deal with Yi Meiyu. "She really won't come out again?" Li Xiaotian still had a lingering fear in his heart as he asked worriedly. Tang Zheng laughed, and said, "Don't worry, She definitely won't be able to come out. Let's go, let's leave this place and let her stay here forever. Tang Zheng brought Li Xiaotian and Wu soared into the air and left the canyon. Tang Zheng turned his head to look at the canyon, his heart moved, and he bellowed, "Move the mountain." A black hole appeared from the center of his palm. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A mountain peak rose into the air and flew straight to the side of the canyon. Bang! The mountain peak fell heavily, the canyon was crushed, and the rocks sank down, turning into ruins. The mountain peak sat on top of the ruins. The bronze coffin was located deep underground, and there was a mountain peak on top of it. Even if Yi Meiyu had wings, it would be difficult for her to escape. Li Xiaotian and Wu stared at the scene with wide eyes, looking at Tang Zheng with eyes full of worship. She won't be able to escape this time, right? Marshall asked. Tang Zheng smiled and nodded, of course. Li Xiaotian and Wu patted their chests and laughed as if relieved of a heavy burden. Suddenly, Li Xiaotian closed his eyes and fell down weakly. She had suffered quite a bit of torture and was already exhausted. If not for her strong willpower, she would have collapsed long ago. Li Xiaotian, Tang Zheng and Wu cried out in alarm at the same time. Tang Zheng anxiously hugged her, and with a leap, the somersault cloud rose into the air, carrying the three of them out of the 10,000 huge mountains. The next day, Li Xiaotian was already full of energy. Tang Zheng had already helped her get rid of the savage aura, and her body had completely recovered. The two of them strolled in the garden hand in hand. Southern Yunnan was originally located in the subtropics, and the climate was pleasant. It was like spring all year round, and there were flourishing flowers all year round. Li Xiaotian no longer had the viciousness of the past, and only endless sweetness and happiness remained on his face. No one disturbed their world, and even Wu went to deal with the daily affairs of southern Yunnan. After all, almost all the warriors in the country were gathered in southern Yunnan, and all sorts of complicated matters were a test of Wu's ability. A while ago, everyone was in a state of panic. Now that the storm had finally calmed down, she naturally had to deal with the aftermath. Because Li Xiaotian was injured, he could relax a little and enjoy the two of them alone with Tang Zheng. However, the content of the conversation between the two of them was filled with bloodshed. Tang Zheng was telling her about the matters of the Dragon Realm, and Li Xiaotian was fascinated by it. One day, I also want to accompany you by your side and fight against strong enemies with you, Li Xiaotian said infatuatedly. Tang Zheng held her waist, his arm slightly exerted force, and said with certainty, "You will definitely have this opportunity, and it will be in the near future. Right now, your top priority is to cultivate." Li Xiaotian understood and nodded. "I understand, I am different from ordinary warriors and cultivators. My Xitigaba Sutra has already made a new appearance, and I am planning to go to the Ghost Realm to ask the Dezang of Gugurio for guidance." Tang Zheng smiled and said, "You can wander freely in the Ghost Realm, so of course you can't miss such a good opportunity. It just so happens that I haven't seen the Dezang of Gugurio for a long time, and I am also preparing to meet him." Tang Zheng always remembered Yang Qingyi's doomsday prophecy. Yang Qingyi was related to the heavenly Tao, and all of this was probably not a frightening lie. As for when the doomsday would happen, he did not know. But there was one thing, he also comprehended the heavenly book, and comprehended the heavenly Tao. Could he make a fuss about it and find clues about the doomsday? The ghost realm and the human realm were mother and child worlds, and they complemented each other. If the human realm was destroyed, it would not be good for the ghost realm. Therefore, as the lord of the human realm, he naturally wanted to discuss this issue with the lord of the ghost realm. "There is no time like the present, let's go," Li Xiaotian said excitedly. She could go on an adventure alone with Tang Zheng again, and this was a huge stimulation and temptation to her. Tang Zheng smiled knowingly, and with a wave of his hand, he did not need the ghost messenger token, and he had already broken the space restriction between the human realm and the ghost realm, and established a stable space door. Chapter 1787. The sky of the ghost realm was still grey, but a huge vortex appeared in the sky, covering thousands of miles. This huge ghost realm was almost completely covered by the vortex. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian looked at this strange scene in shock because they had never seen such a situation before. The two looked at each other and already understood that an accident had happened in the ghost realm, and it was a bad accident. There was no doubt about this because the ghosts of the ghost realm flew into the sky one by one and were sucked into the huge vortex, disappearing without a trace. When a certain number of ghosts were sucked in, the vortex would increase in size. This was a vicious cycle. The bigger the vortex, the more ghosts it could absorb. Come, let's go to the center and take a look. Tang Zheng waved his hand and a ball of light covered Li Xiaotian. This was a protective shield to prevent Li Xiaotian from being hurt again. She had walked through the gates of hell and Tang Zheng did not want her to go through this kind of torture again. Whoosh! The somersault cloud carried the two of them and rode on the clouds. Like light and lightning, they crossed thousands of miles of space and distance. The two of them finally arrived at the bottom of the vortex. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! One by one, the ghosts were like hydrogen balloons rising into the air, quickly disappearing into the vortex. The screams resounded through the world, the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves. It was creepy, but it was mixed with a strong sense of pain. What the hell is going on? Li Xiaotian asked with a pale face. She had been to the ghost realm several times, but she had never seen such a situation. For the ghost realm, this was simply a disaster. Tang Zheng shook his head. He did not know what was going on, but his mind was clear and he said, "Let's find the Dezang of Gugurio first, then we can figure out what is going on. I believe that he is safe and sound." "Then where do we find him?" Li Xiaotian asked blankly. Tang Zheng looked around. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as he found something unusual. Under the huge vortex, there were ghosts constantly rising into the air. However, there was a place where there were no ghosts in the air. It seemed to be a pure land of bliss. There had to be someone resisting for such an effect to occur. In the ghost realm, only the Dezang of Gugurio had such strength. "Let's go over there." Tang Zheng pointed with his finger. Li Xiaotian was also a smart person and immediately understood Tang Zheng's thoughts. He said, "Dezang of Gugurio must be there." When the two of them flew to that area, they looked down and actually saw a huge swastika symbol on the ground, glowing with a dazzling golden light. It was precisely this symbol and the golden light that protected the ghosts below from the tragic fate of being sucked away. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva sat in the middle of a huge execution field, chanting sutras. There were many people sitting around him. Other than the kings of hell, there were also ghost marshals and ghost operatives. All in all, it was a gathering of countless forces. There was one thing that surprised Tang Zheng because he did not see all the kings of hell. Could it be that some of the kings of hell had sacrificed themselves? He guessed right. The ghost realm had suffered great losses, and even the kings of hell had fallen. It was obvious how much damage they had suffered. "Let's go down and help." Tang Zheng landed the somersault cloud. The suction force in the sky could not penetrate the golden light of the swastika, but the somersault cloud shuttled freely through the swastika and landed beside Dezang of Gugurio. All eyes were on the two of them. Most of them were too familiar with these two faces and would never forget them for the rest of their lives. Many of them knew how powerful Tang Zheng was, and they could not help but feel hopeful. Dezang of Gugurio was calm and composed as he chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra. He glanced at Tang Zheng from the corner of his eye and did not say a word. However, his expression and actions had already explained everything. He obviously welcomed Tang Zheng's arrival. This was a powerful external aid. "Dezang of Gugurio, what's going on?" Tang Zheng asked. Dezang of Gugurio clasped his hands together and said calmly, "An external enemy has invaded the ghost realm and is devouring the entire ghost realm." "What?" Tang Zheng was shocked. This meant that it was an external enemy. The ghost realm had always been safe and sound. How could there be an external enemy all of a sudden? He raised his head and stared at the sky. The huge vortex was like a bloody mouth. With a thought, he sensed the huge vortex from a distance. He was well versed in the law of space. He really sensed that this vortex was connected to other spaces. This vortex was actually a spatial door. It really is an external invasion. Tang Zheng furrowed his brows. Dezang of Gugurio lamented, "The ghost realm has such a calamity. I'm afraid I'm not a match for this strong enemy by myself." Even Dezang of Gugurio was ashamed of his inferiority. He had to admit that the enemy's strength was beyond imagination. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched a few times and asked, "Is the enemy really so powerful? Have you seen the enemy's real body?" Dezang of Gugurio shook his head and said, "This spatial door appeared without warning in the sky above the ghost realm. It has been there for some time. We struggled to resist it, but we still couldn't resist it. But from the beginning to the end, the enemy didn't show his real body." Tang Zheng was shocked. From this point, it was enough to show that the enemy was really powerful. He could launch such a powerful attack without showing his real body. Dezang of Gugurio looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression and asked tentatively, "Your cultivation?" Suddenly, Dezang of Gugurio paused. He looked excited and said in disbelief, "Have you really broken through that threshold? Reached that mysterious realm?" Tang Zheng understood what he meant and nodded. "Yes, I am already in the Saint Realm." "The Saint Realm? So that realm is called the Saint Realm." Dezang of Gugurio suddenly understood and his heart swayed. This was the realm he had been searching for, but he had never found it. He never thought that he could see others reach this realm, which meant that his feeling was right. This realm really did exist in this world. He wanted to get to the bottom of it and find out what kind of realm the Saint Realm was, but the current environment did not allow him to do so. Tang Zheng was also well aware of this point, so he directly said, "I will lend you a hand." Dezang of Gugurio looked excited. He naturally wanted to see how powerful the Saint Realm cultivation was. Whoosh! Tang Zheng soared into the sky and rushed directly to the huge vortex. The terrible suction force enveloped him in an instant and pulled him into the vortex. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. He had comprehended the law of space. How could this little bit of suction force deal with him? He was safe and sound, like an aircraft carrier in the middle of a storm, unmoved. "Since you're using the law of space, I'd like to see which world you are from," Tang Zheng said faintly. Boom! A wave of qi rippled out, creating a circle of ripples that spread out in all directions. Many ghosts in the air instantly found that they had regained their freedom. The terrible suction force had disappeared. There was no doubt that all of this was due to Tang Zheng's contribution. He had achieved such a great effect in one move. They were all very excited. "Run!" Tang Zheng shouted. The ghosts seemed to wake up from a dream and fled in all directions. The vortex in the sky seemed to have noticed something strange and quietly changed. Chapter 1788. The ghosts escaped death and left the area covered by the vortex. Tang Zheng stood proudly in the air, staring at the huge vortex. The vortex quietly changed, and a face appeared in the sky. Although it was very blurry, Tang Zheng could still see it clearly, and his pupils couldn't help but shrink. "It's you!" Tang Zheng cried out in surprise, looking at the huge figure in disbelief. "Who is it?" Dezang of Gugurio asked curiously. The others also stretched their necks, looking at Tang Zheng curiously. Everyone spent so much time, but still couldn't find out who the other party was. Tang Zheng had just arrived, but he found a clue. Could this be the extraordinary part of the Saint Realm? Tang Zheng muttered to himself, "King Wuling. Who is King Wuling?" Dezang of Gugurio asked curiously. "An enemy of the heavens beyond heaven." Tang Zheng's brain raced. King Wuling was Hao Tianwang's son, a powerhouse of the heavens beyond heaven. How could he appear in the sky of the ghost realm? Could it be that King Wuling was on the other side of the spatial door? What was he trying to do? Dezang of Gugurio didn't know King Wuling, but he realized that the other party was very powerful. He hurriedly said, "Tang Zheng, you must make King Wuling stop as soon as possible." Tang Zheng nodded heavily and said, "I understand." Whoosh! Moving on its own accord, a wave of air surged up, revealing a sky-shaking wave, surging and surging towards the huge vortex. Pu! A crack was torn in the vortex, and the spatial door was no longer stable, trembling violently. The other ghosts immediately felt their bodies relax, and the suction force that shrouded them completely disappeared. The vortex gradually converged, showing signs of returning to its original state. Rising from the ashes, "Do you really think I'm a pushover? How could you possibly surpass me in terms of comprehension of the laws of space? With a few popping sounds, the cracks gradually widened and showed signs of expanding. Like a spider web, they gradually covered the entire vortex. King Wuling's figure rippled and became blurry. This was not the real King Wuling, but King Wuling casting a spell. It must be some kind of secret spell, and then his figure was imprinted in the sky of the ghost realm. King Wuling, you've already revealed yourself. You've done so much, and now you want to just leave. Tang Zheng instantly used the sky swallowing technique. The sky suddenly changed color, and the shattered vortexes were actually attracted by the sky swallowing technique's black hole. Whoosh! The vortex couldn't escape the black hole at all. In an instant, most of the vortices disappeared into the black hole. King Wuling's figure became clear again. That was because he had been locked in by the sky swallowing technique. Although they were in two different worlds, King Wuling still couldn't escape from the sky swallowing technique. Tang Zheng was like a clear mirror, and naturally knew that he had locked in on King Wuling. How could he let him leave? With a thought, his power increased greatly. Boom! A crack appeared in the sky, crossing the sky. Even though the sky was very dim, the crack was very clear. It was shocking, and it was terrifying. King Wuling, come here! Tang Zheng roared, and half a body appeared in the crack. If it wasn't King Wuling, who else could it be? King Wuling widened his eyes and looked at the scene in disbelief. His real body was in the heavens beyond heaven, and he thought that he was absolutely safe. He never expected that when he carried out the task assigned by his father, he would encounter such a strong resistance. After the big battle, Hao Tianwang realized that his strength was not enough. If he wanted to crush his opponent, he had to find another way. He thought hard and finally set his eyes on the world of spirits and souls. It was not a secret that the world of spirits and souls was a mother-child world. If Hao Tianwang absorbed the energy of the world of spirits and souls, the fate of the human world would be damaged. Once the fate of the human world was weakened, Hao Tianwang's chances of winning would be higher. The world of spirits and souls was the breakthrough. Hao Tianwang sent his son to carry out the task while he cultivated in seclusion to prepare for the final battle. King Wuling's power had improved by leaps and bounds under Hao Tianwang's guidance. He had reached the 9th stage of the Mahayana realm, which was only a step away from the Saint realm. He was on par with Dezang of Gugurio. However, King Wuling had the sacred magic weapon given by Hao Tianwang. Against the world of spirits and souls, he had an overwhelming advantage. Dezang of Gugurio did not expect that when victory was in his hands, someone would ruin his good deed. He heard the familiar roar and was shocked. He roared in disbelief, "Tang Zheng, it's you." This roar resounded throughout the ghost realm. Tang Zheng's name resounded like thunder, and there was no one in the ghost realm who did not know of him. Seeing that the enemy actually knew of him, everyone felt that Tang Zheng's abilities were vast and unfathomable. So you know each other. Dezang of Gugurio suddenly realized. Tang Zheng said, "Not only do we know each other, but we are also old enemies." Dezang of Gugurio's pupils shrank and said, "What do we do now?" "Watch as I capture him." Tang Zheng roared as his figure flashed, shooting straight up into the air towards the gigantic vortex. Half of King Wuling's body was stuck in the vortex. His body was much taller than before and looked terrifying. Sky swallowing technique. Whoosh! The black hole shrouded the top of King Wuling's head. The huge suction force tore him up and resisted the terrifying power of space. "Ah!" King Wuling screamed in horror and looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. He roared, "How did you become so powerful?" Since Hao Tianwang gave him pointers, his power had greatly increased. His confidence in himself had multiplied and he thought that Tang Zheng was no match for him. But at this moment, the strength that Tang Zheng showed made him feel a deep fear. "No, this can't be true," he roared hysterically, unwilling to believe this cruel reality. Tang Zheng snorted and said, "King Wuling, you didn't linger in the outland but came to the ghost realm to die. Then I'll fulfill your wish." Puff! The black hole increased its strength and King Wuling was sucked straight from the outland. His figure flashed and he was already standing in the sky above the ghost realm. Tang Zheng casually waved his hand, and with a catch sound, like a bolt of lightning flashing across the sky, the huge spatial vortex shattered into pieces and disappeared into thin air. King Wuling turned his head and looked in despair. He was not like Tang Zheng, who could open and close the space door at will. He did not have that ability. He was able to open the space door between the Outland and the Ghost Realm with the help of Hao Tianwang's ability. King Wuling grimaced and looked disgusting. He looked around and found that several kings of Hell and the Dezang of Gugurio had already leaped into the air and surrounded him. There were all kinds of ghost messengers and ghost generals outside, layer upon layer, surrounding him. Pairs of red eyes stared at him, as if they wanted to eat him alive. The Ghost Realm had suffered such a great disaster, so they naturally would not let go of the culprit. They had long hated him to the core. King Wuling knew that this matter could not be settled peacefully. The enemy was coming aggressively, and with his own strength, he was afraid that it would be a bloody battle. He took a deep breath and activated a new treasure. His eyes burst open and he roared, "You're not qualified to kill me." Whoosh. Chapter 1789. King Wuling's magical weapon was powerful, and the world was completely shrouded in the killing intent of the magical weapon. Screams came one after another, and the ghost messengers and ghost generals were all affected, screaming as they retreated. Dezang of Gugurio chanted the name of Buddha, and with a palm strike, a golden handprint fell from the sky. He chanted, and Sanskrit gathered around the handprint, constantly circling and dancing. 10,000 Buddhas. These 4 words jumped out from Dezang of Gugurio's mouth, and the world turned into a golden color. Boom! The handprint hit the colorful magical weapon, and with a rumble, cracks appeared on the magical weapon, and with a flash of light, the handprint also fell apart. King Wuling looked at this scene in disbelief. That was the magical weapon passed down to him by his father, and it was very powerful, but it was damaged just like that. He didn't see that Dezang of Gugurio had such powerful strength before, and was completely suppressed and beaten up by him. "What's going on?" King Wuling shouted hysterically. "Amitabha, before I was distracted to save others, and naturally couldn't fight with you wholeheartedly. Now, I have no worries, and it's time to seek justice for the Ghost Realm." Whoosh! Dezang of Gugurio soared into the sky, and his whole body bloomed with golden light. Especially his eyes, which were wide open, no longer looked kind, but had turned into an angry Vajra. Kitigaba Bodhisattva mumbled something under his breath. Lines of Sanskrit flew out from his mouth, and the sound of a resounding bell rang out between heaven and earth, shaking the hearts of those who heard it. The other living beings of the Ghost Realm knelt on the ground devoutly, and looked at Dezang of Gugurio with blazing eyes. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank, and he also stared at Dezang of Gugurio, and sighed in his heart. Dezang of Gugurio was really powerful, and the power of the 10,000 Buddhas was beyond doubt, and even King Wuling's magical weapon could break it. Instead, he became idle and watched this scene with interest. King Wuling was not reconciled, and roared, "Go to hell." Whoosh! A brilliant light shot out from the damaged magical weapon, piercing the sky, and went straight to Dezang of Gugurio. Dezang of Gugurio chanted the name of Buddha, and used the 10,000 Buddhas again. Boom! The explosion of light was incomparably dazzling, turning the dim world of spirits and souls into a myriad of colors, making it difficult for people to open their eyes. Dezang of Gugurio narrowed his eyes slightly. Suddenly, he felt a chill in his heart, and a sense of crisis arose. He quickly dodged to the left, but he was still a step too late. Bang! A ray of light hit his chest, and as if he was hit by a great force, his chest quickly caved in, and he flew backward. The light dissipated, and the others happened to see this scene. Dezang of Gugurio. Suddenly, cries of alarm rose one after another, and it was very moving. Tang Zheng thought to himself, "Cunning, the martial spirit king made a feint, and actually caused the Kitigaba Bodhisattva to suffer." Tang Zheng's figure flashed, and he had already caught Dezang of Gugurio, and asked, "How are you?" Dezang of Gugurio weakly shook his head, looked down at his sunken chest, and said with difficulty, "I'm fine. You heal first, I'll deal with him." Tang Zheng put down Dezang of Gugurio, and rose into the air. His eyes were like torches, firmly locked onto King Wuling. King Wuling guiltily avoided his gaze, and said in a threatening manner, "Tang Zheng, do you also want to die?" "Humph." Tang Zheng coldly snorted, and said, "Let's see if you die or I die." King Wuling guiltily retreated. He already understood that Tang Zheng was not the same as before, and he was no match for him at all, not to mention that his magical weapon was destroyed. Just now, the second move, 10,000 Buddhas, had already destroyed his magical weapon. Now, he didn't even have his most powerful magical weapon, so how could he be Tang Zheng's match? King Wuling was very self-aware, so he decided to temporarily avoid the brunt of the attack, and tried to escape. Tang Zheng saw through his intentions at a glance, and said with a sneer, "You want to leave after injuring someone? You're dreaming. Stay for me." Whoosh. He stretched out his hand, and a black hole suddenly appeared out of thin air, and a huge suction force instantly enveloped King Wuling. King Wuling's complexion changed greatly, and said, "You want to trap me just like that? Break for me." King Wuling's body straightened, and surging waves of energy endlessly spread out, and with a rumbling sound, the sky seemed to be torn apart. However, the black hole was still firm and stable, and King Wuling had no way to break through the shackles of the sky-swallowing technique. "Now you know what it means to be an ant trying to shake a tree, right?" Tang Zheng asked jokingly. King Wuling's complexion tightened, and he gritted his teeth, using all his skills. Poof! A mouthful of blood was spat out, and King Wuling's aura changed greatly, and he became dispirited. "Come here!" Tang Zheng roared, and King Wuling quickly moved closer to Tang Zheng. He kept struggling, but it was all in vain. Seeing this scene, all the living beings in the world of spirits and souls rejoiced, and they all cheered for Tang Zheng. King Wuling was bleeding from his 7 orifices, but he still couldn't stop himself from moving closer to Tang Zheng. He knew that he had no chance to escape. However, he wouldn't allow himself to become a captive. He grimaced, and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. "Tang Zheng, if I die, my father will avenge me. He will definitely kill you, and all of you, you're all dead. The luck of the Outland is soaring, and the world of spirits and souls will be destroyed." A strange look flashed through Tang Zheng's eyes. King Wuling was determined to die, and he knew that things were not going well. His figure flashed, and he rushed toward King Wuling. "No!" Tang Zheng only had time to shout and try to stop him, but it was too late. Boom! King Wuling exploded in the air, and he turned into light and dissipated. He was dead. Tang Zheng froze in mid-air, sighed, and looked at the dissipating light. King Wuling knew too many secrets. If he could capture him alive, he would definitely be able to learn a lot about Hao Tianwang. However, he still remembered what King Wuling said at the last moment, about the luck of the Outland and the survival of the world of spirits and souls. His heart skipped a beat, and he seemed to have guessed something. The others did not think of so many questions. They only saw that King Wuling was dead, and immediately, the tide of cheers was deafening. Pairs of eyes looked at Yu Mo with gratitude and excitement. This strong enemy was finally dead, and the world of spirits and souls was safe. Dezang of Gugurio had finished healing, but his mood was not as high as the others. He looked at Tang Zheng anxiously. Their eyes met, and they seemed to have understood each other's meaning through their eyes. Boom! Before the two of them could say a word, there was an earth-shattering turbulence in the world of spirits and souls. Heaven and earth shook, and the ground cracked. This, Tang Zheng and Dezang of Gugurio's hearts skipped a beat. Did King Wuling's words come true? The people of the world of spirits and souls immediately fell silent and looked at the scene in a daze. They were at a loss, and many of them shouted in panic, "What's going on? Is the sky going to fall, and the earth going to collapse? What happened in the world of spirits and souls?" Chapter 1790. Tang Zheng and Dezang of Gugurio looked at each other and had already figured out some clues. This must be the aftermath of what King Wuling had done before. Tang Zheng secretly used the law of space to understand more clearly and said seriously, "The energy of the ghost realm has been absorbed by King Wuling too much, which caused the energy of the ghost realm to be unstable and the sky to collapse." Dezang of Gugurio nodded and said, "That's right, but do we have a way to temporarily stabilize the ghost realm?" Dezang of Gugurio was not completely sure, so he could only ask Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng thought for a while and nodded. If we work together, we should be able to do this. Then what are we waiting for? Dezang of Gugurio could not wait. The others stared with their eyes wide open, still in shock. If the energy of the ghost realm was unstable, then this world may be destroyed. After all, the ghost realm was no longer a big world, but a small world. Come on. Tang Zheng used the law of space and released his power. Dezang of Gugurio did the same. The two of them rose into the air at the same time and finally suspended above the sky. The sky was fragmented, like a broken glass bottle, covered with cracks like a spider web. Whoosh whoosh. Two rays of light rushed out from Tang Zheng and Dezang of Gugurio's body and rushed into the sky. Boom boom. Two thunderous sounds, the sky shook violently, the law of space was spreading in all directions, stabilizing the sky little by little. The law of space was like glue, gluing the cracks little by little, so that they would not continue to expand. The others' eyes were about to pop out, looking at this strange scene, their emotions were surging and they could not calm down. Tang Zheng and Dezang of Gugurio seemed to have a tacit understanding and turned around. Whoosh whoosh, the two rays of light rushed straight to the ground. Amidst the rumbling, the earth stopped cracking, and the bottomless ravines stabilized. Dezang of Gugurio's body swayed. He was only at the 9th stage of the Mahayana realm, and using the spatial law consumed the most energy. You should rest. I'll finish the rest of the work. The two of them had already completed the most difficult part, but the finishing work was not an easy task. Dezang of Gugurio took a deep look at him. Is this the cultivation of the Saint Plane? After experiencing that fierce battle, he still had the energy to do so many things. He really wasn't someone that a 9th stage Mahayana stage cultivator could compare to. He couldn't help but yearn for it. If he could reach the Saint realm, what a wonderful experience it would be. That was the true ultimate pursuit of a Shouja, and not the 9 grades of Mahayana. Tang Zheng had no distractions. His entire body erupted with resplendent light. Like a scorching sun, he soared into the sky and actually blended into the spider-web-like sky. The light was so dazzling that no one could look directly at it. Those spiderwebs gradually healed. When the light suddenly disappeared, all the cracks completely disappeared without a trace. Everyone stared at this scene in a daze, especially the person who was like a god. Powerful. Everyone only had this thought in their hearts. Their emotions fluctuated, and there was no way to completely describe their feelings. Tang Zheng slowly floated down, like a god descending to the earth. Even Dezang of Gugurio's mind was shaken. Is this a god? Tang Zheng ignored everyone's agitated mood. He looked down at the cracked earth and sighed helplessly. He could only heal the sky to its limit. He had no ability to heal the earth at all. We can only do this for the time being, Tang Zheng said helplessly. Dezang of Gugurio woke up from a dream. He secretly used the spatial law and carefully perceived the world of spirits and souls. He found that the world of spirits and souls had stabilized, but this was also temporary. There were still risks. Only by returning the energy that the other party had taken away could the world of spirits and souls be truly stable. However, Dezang of Gugurio still felt emotional. If it weren't for Tang Zheng's help, he would not have been able to do this. The world of spirits and souls would have been truly destroyed. This was good karma. The karma that he had sowed back then had now borne fruit. Every drink and every peck had its own destiny. It was the cycle of karma. Tang Zheng, thank you. Dezang of Gugurio said sincerely. Tang Zheng shook his head and said shamefully, this matter actually started because of me. If it weren't for what I did in the heavens beyond heaven, they definitely wouldn't have set their sights on your world of spirits and souls. Dezang of Gugurio did not delve into the reason. Instead, he shook his head and said, otherwise, even if it weren't for you, their greed would be rising day by day. They would eventually set their sights on our world of spirits and souls and commit the same crime. Tang Zheng stopped arguing and asked, what are you going to do next? Retrieve the energy that belongs to the world of spirits and souls. Dezang of Gugurio said. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, all right, you and I will go to the heavens beyond heaven. How Tianwang has put in so much effort to absorb the energy of the world of spirits and souls. He must be up to something big. Xiao Bai and the others may not be able to resist. Do we need to prepare anything? How Tianwang has many subordinates. If we want to attack, we must gather all of our men and horses. The army will press forward and win in one battle. We must not give the other party a chance to rise again. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and set the tone. The creatures in the world of spirits and souls are very special. Even the human world can't stay for long. Can they fight in the heavens beyond heaven for a long time? Dezang of Gugurio voiced his concern. Yumo pondered for a moment and smiled. If it was in the past, I definitely wouldn't be able to answer your question. Because the heavens beyond heaven is quite different from the human world and the world of spirits and souls. The heavens beyond heaven doesn't have its own mother-child world, which means it doesn't have its own world of spirits and souls. After all living things die, their souls disappear into the world of spirits and souls. But now that the heavens beyond heaven has absorbed the energy of the world of spirits and souls, it has some of the characteristics of the world of spirits and souls, such as yin qi. Dezang of Gugurio understood immediately. His eyes lit up and said, "So that's how it is. That means we can move freely in the heavens beyond heaven? Of course. Even if I can't for the time being, I can use the space law to mobilize the yin qi between heaven and earth. You will be safe and sound." Looking at Tang Zheng's confident look, Dezang of Gugurio was no longer worried and said, "Then when do we set off?" Tang Zheng's heart moved. He looked at the tired creatures of the world of spirits and souls and said, "There's no hurry. Everyone has experienced such a fierce battle and needs to rest. Moreover, once we start marching, there's no turning back. We must plan a foolproof plan. Also, we must mobilize all the combat personnel that can be mobilized." "You mean it's not just our world of spirits and souls army?" "That's right. This concerns the survival of the human world. Naturally, the human world should contribute. Also, I will contact the Dragon Clan. Our three forces will march into the heavens beyond heaven together. We must eliminate Hao Tianwang." As he spoke, his killing intent soared, and the Vajra glared at him. A huge lotus flower spread out from under his feet, which then transformed into a lotus throne that lifted Yumo up. Dezang of Gugurio's eyes lit up and said, "Congratulations. The Xitigaba Sutra has reached the peak." Tang Zheng nodded slightly. He was not surprised by the changes in his body. The Xitigaba Sutra was closely related to the fate of the world of spirits and souls. At this moment, he had merged the fate of the world of spirits and souls into one. The Xitigaba Sutra had undergone earth-shattering changes. Chapter 1791. Tang Zheng left the ghost realm and returned to the human world. In the capital, everyone gathered. When they heard about Tang Zheng's plan, they all chose to remain silent. This matter not only concerned the survival of the ghost realm, but also the rise and fall of the human world. If they did not succeed, then they would really die. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu looked at each other and took the lead to express their stance. "Little Zhang, we support you. Whether it's a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, we are all your vanguard." Tang Zheng had already let go of his worries. Seeing his parents so supportive, he was moved and nodded, "Thank you." Cough cough. Suddenly, Tang Dahai walked in. Originally, he had been enjoying his old age and did not care about the world. This time, no one called him, but he heard the news and came on his own. "These old bones of mine have enjoyed so much, it's time to move my muscles and bones. If I just play and do nothing, my body will rust." "Little Zheng, you don't dislike this old bones of yours, right?" Tang Dahai's statement made Tang Zheng stand up and hurriedly welcome him. "Grandfather, you." Tang Dahai waved his hand and said heroically, "If you want to refuse, then don't speak. I've already made up my mind. I'm going to the sky beyond sky. After cultivating for so long, I also want to try my skills. If you don't even fulfill this wish of mine, then I won't be able to rest in peace in the future." At this point, how could Tang Zheng refuse? He could only gratefully smile and say, "Thank you for your support, grandfather." There was no need for more words. Everyone stood up and expressed that they must go to the sky beyond sky and defeat Hao Tianwang. Tang Zheng did not do any mobilization work at all. The mobilization task was successfully completed. Looking at everyone's excited expression, Tang Zheng felt very gratified. These few days, everyone will do the final adjustments. When the Dragon Clan arrives, we will meet up with the Ghost Realm's army and rush to the sky beyond sky, Tang Zheng announced. In the next few days, everyone was full of energy. They were bound to adjust their state to the best to welcome the upcoming battle. Boom! A loud sound rang out in the sky. Golden light covered the sky and dyed the whole world gold. It was a spectacular sight. Everyone in the world couldn't help but look at the sky, not knowing what was going on. However, the pressure that came from the sky was enough to cause one's expression to change. What's going on? That's right. Is some kind of monster coming? Everyone was in a state of panic. Suddenly, golden light flashed, an enormous figure appearing in the 9 heavens. It was a massive creature. The most important thing was its appearance. Almost everyone recognized it. Dragon. The entire world was shaken. Countless pairs of eyes witnessed all of this. It couldn't be fake. Everyone looked at each other. For a moment, they didn't know what to do. Some screamed, some ran away, and some knelt in worship. There were many different things in the world. Suddenly, another golden light flashed past, and another golden dragon appeared in the 9 heavens. Another dragon. Cries of surprise rang out in all directions. Before anyone could come back to their senses, golden light flashed, and then one golden dragon after another appeared in the sky. They were densely packed, blotting out the sky and forming an extraordinarily mighty dragon army. Immediately, everyone in the world was shocked, not knowing what to do. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure soared into the sky and charged towards the dragon army, as if he was not afraid of the terrifying dragon might at all. Everyone's eyes lit up. They stared at the figure at the same time and kept guessing his identity. In this world, there's probably only one person who dares to challenge the Dragon Clan. It must be him, and he's the only one. The rumors of Tang Zheng had been spreading for a long time, and many people were no stranger to him. Therefore, when they saw this person who went against the trend, they naturally thought of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng stopped in the 9 heavens and stood proudly. He looked at the dragon army and even felt gratified. Suddenly, the dragon race bowed respectfully to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's body and the dragon race were like one was a giant, and the other was as small as an ant. However, the dragon race all bowed to him and called him the dragon god. This scene completely shocked everyone in the world. In the common sense, the dragon race had always been high and mighty, symbolizing supreme status and power. However, now, the dragon race was bowing to Tang Zheng. How was that possible? Many people wondered if their eyes were playing tricks on them. They rubbed their eyes and blinked again. In the end, they were sure that they were not playing tricks on them. Everything was real. Hiss! Everyone gasped angrily, and their expressions were extremely interesting. Then, they gave him a thumbs up and silently praised him. This was too awesome. In the world, people's feelings could no longer be described with words. A god. This thought appeared in many people's minds, and they regarded Tang Zheng as a god. With a loud shout, the others immediately echoed. Immediately, the cheers of the gods resounded throughout the world. Tang Zheng was so high up in the sky, and with his sharp ears and eyes, he actually heard these voices. With his current strength, it was not an exaggeration to call him a god. Tang Zheng nodded to the dragon army and said, "Let's go home first. After dark, we will meet up with the ghost army and set off. If this continues, I'm afraid that people will be scared out of their wits." The Dragon King led the dragon race and said respectfully, "We obey the dragon god's orders." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Golden light flickered and flew to the ground. It was as if a golden meteor shower was falling from the sky. It was unforgettable and rare. In the capital, when the dragon army landed, they had already transformed into human form. Otherwise, it would have caused a huge uproar. The Dragon King and the other dragons looked around and looked at this new world. In the beginning, they almost lived in this world all the time. It was the greed of this world that gave birth to the devil fruit. The others were already in the open space to welcome the dragon army. The witches and some carefully selected warriors were looking at this special team. Many people were not clear about the relationship between Tang Zheng and the dragon race, and there were countless guesses. But looking at the dragon race's respectful appearance to Tang Zheng, they knew that Tang Zheng's prestige and power were far more powerful than they imagined. Tang Zheng briefly introduced and said to the Dragon King, "You've been working hard for half a day. Take a rest for half a day." In the middle of the night, a gust of cold wind blew, and the entire capital cooled down. Although it was early summer, the temperature was still creepy. Whoosh! A huge ghost gate opened in the villa area. Fortunately, there was no one else. Otherwise, they would definitely scare others. It was already the latter half of the night, when the yin qi was at its strongest. The living beings of the ghost realm could freely appear in the human world without worrying about the threat of the yang qi. Dezang of Gugurio took the lead and walked out of the ghost gate. The others followed like shadows, reminding him of the dangers of this mountain. Chapter 1792. The army of the ghost realm and the army of the dragon race converged and looked at each other. The dragon race was a very powerful existence to all realms, and the ghost realm was no exception. Therefore, seeing so many dragon race troops, the ghost realm's people were very confident. Above the 9 heavens, Tang Zheng used the law of space to open a spatial door. With a rumble, a huge hole appeared in the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One figure after another disappeared into the spatial door. When many ordinary people saw this scene, they were shocked to the extreme. Tang Zheng's current cultivation could already support the spatial door, allowing such a large army to easily pass through the spatial door without needing to rely on the Sumeru heavens. Heavens beyond heaven. A huge hole cut across the sky, and countless figures appeared in the sky. Tang Zheng led the army and arrived at heavens beyond heaven. Countless pairs of eyes looked at heavens beyond heaven curiously. This new world was really different, and the scenery was very different. Tang Zheng took the lead and flew straight to the wildlands. The others followed like shadows, majestic and endless. The wildlands was no longer the same as before. It was no longer a desolate scene, but full of vitality. There was a mountain in particular that stood proudly among the crowd, and its aura was majestic. Tang Zheng recognized that mountain at a glance and was shocked. Wasn't that Mount Huaguo? This was indeed Mount Huaguo. It was the 4 symbols that moved Mount Huaguo to the wildlands. A waterfall fell from Mount Huaguo like the Milky Way. Not only were there people living on Mount Huaguo, there were also many animals. Squeak squeak. Many spiritual monkeys shuttled between Mount Huaguo. It was full of vitality, making people feel relaxed and happy. From afar, a group of people rose into the sky from the wildlands to welcome Tang Zheng's army. When they saw Tang Zheng at the front of the crowd, they all bowed and called him alliance leader. These people were all from the Righteous Tao and were the subordinates of the Righteous Tao alliance leader. When they saw the alliance leader return, they were all excited and overjoyed. Whoosh! A person heard the commotion and flew down from the mountain of flowers and fruits. He directly arrived in front of Tang Zheng and hugged him tightly. "Kid, you're finally here," Tian Chanzi said excitedly. Tang Zheng smiled and patted Tian Chanzi's shoulder, saying, "How are your carefree days in Beyond Heaven?" "Mph, how am I free and unfettered? I'm completely working for you. Look, I'm almost skinny. I've been thinking about how to strengthen this group of people all day long," Tian Chanzi said bitterly, but in fact, he wasn't unhappy at all. Tang Zheng smiled and said mysteriously, "This time, I'm here to help you settle this once and for all." "What do you mean?" Tian Chanzi asked, puzzled. Tang Zheng shook his head but did not elaborate. "Master." Fang Shusha walked over and called out respectfully. Tian Chanzi laughed heartily. "Good disciple, you've made great progress in your cultivation. It seems that you haven't been lazy and have lived up to my teachings." Tang Zheng hugged Fang Shusha's slender waist and said, "This is our family's Shusha's outstanding talent. It's not just the credit of an idle master like you." Tian Chanzi blushed and glared at Tang Zheng. He really didn't teach Fang Shusha well. He explained, "Isn't it too far away?" Tang Zheng laughed and said, "Everyone is gathered together again. Let's go in first. This time, I brought a lot of helpers for you." Tian Chanzi looked up. When he saw the Dragon Clan and the Dezang of Gugurio, his eyelids couldn't help but twitch a few times. He was very confident in his own cultivation, especially during this period of time in Beyond Heaven. It was really like sitting on a rocket. Because he had already untied the knot in his heart and returned to the sect, his cultivation was twice the result with half the effort. However, when he saw the Dragon King and the Kittigaba Bodhisattva, he still felt ashamed of his inferiority. He realized the gap between the two of them. He was really curious about who the Dragon King was and how he could have such a shocking cultivation. The group of people entered the barbarian land. Tang Zheng admired the changes along the way and praised Tian Chanzi. He was so happy that he almost flew into the sky. "Hey, where's Xiao Bai?" Tang Zheng looked around and couldn't help but be surprised when he didn't see Xiao Bai. His Majesty led the warriors of the Witch clan to scout for information. The ancestor quickly walked out and explained. Tang Zheng greeted him and said, "Ancestor, long time no see." The ancestor looked at Tang Zheng with a smile and said, "His Majesty takes care of everything personally. Some time ago, he discovered a strange phenomenon in the sky, so he went to investigate." "A strange phenomenon in the sky?" Tang Zheng was moved and asked, "What strange phenomenon?" "I can't explain it clearly, but it must be related to Hao Tianwang." His Majesty was worried, so he went to find out what the traitor was doing. The ancestor said bitterly. Tang Zheng subconsciously looked at the Dezang of Gugurio. The Dezang of Gugurio was thoughtful and turned to look at Tang Zheng. Both of them were moved and thought of the same thing. The Dezang of Gugurio said in a deep voice, "Could it be related to the ghost world?" Tang Zheng nodded and said, "It must be the strange phenomenon caused by Dezang of Gugurio absorbing the energy of the ghost world. Beyond Heaven is a big world. What is Hao Tianwang scheming?" The ancestor was shocked and said angrily, "It's definitely not a good thing. Wouldn't His Majesty be in danger?" Tang Zheng shook his head and comforted, "Don't worry, Xiaobai is not weak, and he has the witch tribe warriors to protect him. There shouldn't be any problems." "The four symbols are also there," the ancestor added. Tang Zheng smiled and was even more relieved. He said, "Then there's no need to worry. The ancestor knows the strength of the four symbols. Even if there is danger, they can protect Xiao Bai." The ancestor nodded hesitantly and said, "I still feel uneasy. Let's go find His Majesty as soon as possible." Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, "Let's settle them down. I'll go find him myself." The Dezang of Gugurio was originally worried that the beings of the ghost world could not survive in Beyond Heaven, but now it seemed that it was unnecessary. It was still daytime in Beyond Heaven, and the yang qi was quite strong, but they were safe and sound. He glanced at Tang Zheng and reminded him, "Tang Zheng, you were right earlier. Beyond Heaven is indeed full of yin qi. We can live and fight normally." Tang Zheng nodded slightly. He also noticed this point, which meant that Hao Tianwang had indeed absorbed a lot of energy from the ghost world. He was probably plotting something big. Dezang of Gugurio, Dragon King, settle your people down and get used to it. I'm afraid a war will break out in a few days. Tang Zheng reminded. The two knew the seriousness of the matter, so they did not say much and nodded. "I'll go with you." The few girls finally came to Beyond Heaven, and their excitement was overflowing. Yi Dingdang, Wu, and Liu Qingmai had already been to Beyond Heaven. Tang Zheng thought for a moment and waved to Fang Shusha. He said, "Shusha, come with me and enjoy the scenery of Beyond Heaven." Chapter 1793. Sky Beyond Heaven. Fang Shusha was appreciating this vast new world for the first time. She was so engrossed in the scenery that her eyes were not enough to take it all in. Sky Beyond Heaven is really different. "It's so beautiful," Fang Shusha exclaimed. Tang Zheng nodded in agreement. "Yes, this is Xiaobai's home, but now it has been occupied by Hao Tianwang. We must help him take back Sky Beyond Heaven." Fang Shusha nodded heavily. "I understand. How can such a beautiful home fall into the wrong hands?" In a while, Don't act rashly. Listen to all my orders. I will protect you well, Tang Zheng reminded her. Fang Shisha smiled faintly and took Tang Zheng's hand. With you, of course I can rest assured. Whoosh. The somersault cloud carried the two of them and flew straight to their destination. From afar, Tang Zheng saw the familiar yet unfamiliar place. It was where Sky Castle used to be, but now it was different. Sky Castle had fallen and turned into ruins, overgrown with weeds. It was slightly desolate. There was a dead silence between heaven and earth, and there was a kind of stifling atmosphere. The somersault cloud came to an abrupt stop. Tang Zheng and Fang Shisha looked down and looked at the land in surprise. It was really different from before. Fang Shisha covered her mouth in surprise. What's wrong with this place? Why is it so desolate and dilapidated? It's so different from before. This used to be the center of sky beyond heaven. After a great battle, Sky Castle fell and became like this. Tang Zheng explained concisely. Fang Shisha suddenly understood and said thoughtfully, then what about Hao Tianwang and the others? Could it be that they started a new life and went to other places? It doesn't look like there are signs of human habitation here. Tang Zheng thought for a while and shook his head. No, Tian Chan's intelligence says that Hao Tianwang and the others are still stationed here. It can't be wrong. Then where are they? Fang Shisha asked suspiciously. Xiao Bai also came here, but we don't know where he is. There must be something fishy going on. Tang Zheng said with certainty. Fang Shisha understood and said, then let's go down first. Tang Zheng nodded. He controlled the somersault cloud and slowly landed on the ground. Be careful, Tang Zheng reminded Fang Shisha. Then, they jumped off the somersault cloud and stepped on the messy ruins. The two of them had already appeared, but the surroundings were still deathly silent. This was extremely strange. After all, this was Hao Tianwang's lair, and there was no reaction to the invasion of foreign enemies. This was too unusual. The two of them searched for a long time but still couldn't find any trace of the enemy. They had no choice but to stop. Fang Shisha stared intensely at Tang Zheng. She saw him frown and ponder. After a while, he said, the yin qi here is very dense. It is because it absorbed too much of the yin qi from the ghost realm. Therefore, this is definitely Hao Tianwang's lair. But where are they? Fang Shisha asked. Heaven and earth. Since they can't go up to the sky, they must be underground. Tang Zheng's gaze turned and fell on the ground. Fang Shisha also stared at the ground at the same time. She said incredulously, can people hide underground? Moreover, it's not just one or two, but so many people. Hao Tianwang is a true expert. Everything that seems impossible becomes possible in his hands. It's not surprising. Tang Zheng explained. Fang Shisha suddenly understood and said, I understand. Then let's go underground. Yes. Fang Shisha was about to ask how to go down and where to find the entrance when she saw Tang Zheng's foot stomp on the ground. Boom. Like the weight of Mount Tai, the ground shook, and pieces of ruins floated up like dust. Ka. The ground cracked inch by inch, and cracks appeared that went all the way to the bottom of the ground. It was unfathomable. Fang Shisha hurriedly grabbed Tang Zheng's arm. Only then did she stabilize her body and look at the scene in shock. This was just the power of a single stomp, but it was really incredible. Tang Zheng stared at the cracks without blinking. Wisps of yin qi rushed out of the cracks. There was no doubt that there was more dense yin qi underground. It was really underground. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He protected Fang Shisha and said, let's go down. Whoosh. The two of them were like meteorites from outer space. They jumped into the crack at lightning speed and rushed straight down. The yin qi is so dense. After descending for a while, Fang Shisha also noticed the abnormality. She sighed with a serious face. It can only be said that they didn't hide it well enough. Tang Zheng snorted and increased his speed. Gradually, the yin qi was like a lake, becoming extremely sticky. If a normal person was surrounded by such a strong yin qi, they would have died a long time ago. But Tang Zheng was like a fish in water. He curled his finger and the yin qi seemed to come alive. It actually retreated, rumbling, like an angry dragon, rushing into the bottomless abyss. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion from the ground, and a sharp whistling sound rushed out of the ground. Tang Zheng did not slow down. He roared, "Hidden sword, attack!" Buzz! The hidden sword flashed in the air and burst out a bright light. The light suddenly trembled, and a treasure had already hit the hidden sword. The hidden sword was not damaged at all, but the opponent's treasure was damaged. It turned into a dazzling light and quietly fell. Powerful! Fang Shusha praised in her heart, and clenched her fist. Tang Zheng was expressionless. This attack did not cause any waves in his heart, because the power was not strong. Since you have shown yourself, don't even think about escaping. Whoosh! The hidden sword turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the darkness. Not long after, a scream came from the darkness. Obviously, the opponent had died under the hidden sword. Tang Zheng and Fang Shusha were like shadows. They caught up with the hidden sword, but the scene in front of them had already changed. A door appeared in front of them, emitting a mysterious light, illuminating the surroundings. The surroundings were silent. There was nothing else. The crack had also stopped. It was obvious that they had reached the bottom. Where did this door lead to? Tang Zheng looked for a while, and pressed his hands on the door. His palm power erupted, but the door did not move. It was as if it was connected with the ground. It could not be moved at all. One must know how powerful Tang Zheng was. It was enough to split a mountain, but he still could not move this door. It could be seen that this door was very strange. Fang Shusha was surprised. She opened her mouth and asked, "How could this be?" Tang Zheng let go of his hand and looked up and down at the door. He said thoughtfully, "This is not an ordinary door. It seems to have a special door." "What door?" Tang Zheng did not say a word. He stretched out a hand and pressed on the door again. His heart moved, and he felt a trace of abnormal fluctuations in the space. Another world. Tang Zheng was shocked. Could it be that behind this door was another world? How could there be another world in the sky? Without a doubt, this must be related to Hao Tianwang. Maybe it was related to him. He spent a lot of effort to absorb the energy of the ghost world. Chapter 1794. Fang Shusha only knew a little about the law of space and had not reached the realm of comprehending the law of space. She asked in confusion, "Then how do we get to this world?" If they couldn't enter this world, everything was just empty talk. Both of them knew this very well. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, "We can travel from the human world to the outland, so naturally, we can also travel from the outland to this world." Fang Shusha's eyes lit up as she looked at Tang Zheng expectantly. Tang Zheng calmed himself down and silently felt the other space. The law of space quietly began to operate. Break! Tang Zheng growled and spat out a burst of energy from his palm, causing the door to tremble and the surroundings to tremble. This space seemed to be unable to withstand it. The spatial door will open soon, but I don't know what the situation is on the other side and what dangers there are. So, you must pay attention. Tang Zheng warned. Fang Shusha nodded. Boom! There was a loud noise and the door shook violently. A black hole appeared, allowing two people to pass through. "Let's go." Tang Zheng pulled Fang Shusha and went through together. The scene in front of them suddenly changed. It was pitch black, and they couldn't even see their fingers. What's going on? The two were shocked. This was not the space-time between two spaces, but a real world. Tang Zheng was very clear about this. But this world was too strange. There was no light at all, as if there was only darkness left between heaven and earth. This was really too abnormal. Boom! A ball of fire burned and floated in front of the two, illuminating the surroundings. It was empty, and there was nothing. Fang Shusha finally saw Tang Zheng's appearance and asked worriedly, "Why is this world like this?" Tang Zheng shook his head bitterly, "I don't know. But the yin qi here is rich, even stronger than in the world of spirits and souls." Fang Shusha covered her mouth in surprise and asked, "The yin qi here is stronger than in the world of spirits and souls? Then why don't I have any reaction? There doesn't seem to be any discomfort." Yin qi was extremely harmful to the human body. If one was exposed to yin qi for too long, one's life would be in danger. However, Fang Shusha did not feel the slightest abnormality, which was very strange. Tang Zheng wasn't afraid of yin qi, so he didn't feel anything. However, after Fang Shusha's reminder, he suddenly realized. He was still in a state of shock as he said, "That makes sense. The yin qi here seems to have been transformed. It no longer hurts the human body." Fang Shusha was speechless. Without a doubt, this was definitely Hao Tianwang's handiwork. After all, he and his subordinates were not from the ghost realm. They had to transform their yin qi in order to live safely under this sky. Hao Tianwang has put in so much effort, so he must be planning something big. "We can't let our guard down and just let him do as he pleases," Tang Zheng said firmly. As soon as he finished speaking, he and Fang Shusha had already jumped onto the somersault cloud and soared into the sky. The somersault cloud was extremely fast. After flying for a short while, there seemed to be a lot of shadows in front of them. These were not enemies, but a continuous stretch of buildings. Previously, they had passed through a flatland, so these buildings appeared particularly abrupt. They must have extraordinary value and significance. "I'm afraid the enemy is in these buildings," Tang Zheng reminded. Fang Shusha understood what he meant. Immediately, her whole body tensed up, ready to go. However, the two were still very puzzled. The world in front of them was dark. There wasn't even a little bit of light. How did the enemy live? They couldn't possibly live in the darkness all the time. Besides, the heavenly fire and somersault cloud were too conspicuous. When they got close, Tang Zheng immediately put away the heavenly fire and merged with the dark world. There was only darkness left between heaven and earth. They couldn't even see their fingers if they stretched out their hands. Fang Shusha widened her eyes, but could only distinguish a vague image. Tang Zheng was not afraid of the dark. Even in the dark, he had extraordinary eyesight. However, it was different this time. He couldn't see far in the dark. He wasn't much better than Fang Shusha. There's something strange about this darkness. Tang Zheng made a judgment and became even more cautious. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. The strong murderous aura was awe-inspiring. Their hearts trembled. Enemy attack! Tang Zheng warned Fang Shusha in a low voice. With a point of his finger, the hidden mysterious sword flew out as if it was his arm. Boom! With a loud noise, the hidden mysterious sword flew back. It seemed that it couldn't do anything to the enemy and was even bounced back. The hidden mysterious sword was a divine weapon. Its power was extraordinary. However, it flew back. This shocked Tang Zheng and Fang Shusha. They looked at each other. Although they couldn't see each other's expressions in the dark, they could feel it. What was going on? Both of them had questions in their minds. Tang Zheng snorted and said, "I'm in the Saint Plane. If I could be blocked by such a small attack, then I wouldn't be in the Saint Plane." Since his whereabouts had been exposed, he gave up being careful. Instead, he activated his power. The hidden mysterious sword immediately lit up. Boom! A flame appeared on the hidden mysterious sword. The hidden mysterious sword turned into a fire sword. The heavenly fire was like the sun. It drove away the surrounding darkness. Everything gradually became clear. Tang Zheng looked up and seemed to see something. It was a tall tower. The tower was huge. It towered into the clouds. He couldn't see the end of it. Even the heavenly fire couldn't illuminate it completely. This tower is not normal. Tang Zheng judged based on his experience. Because, more and more yin qi came from the top of the tower. Although he couldn't see clearly, he could tell something from this. Perhaps the hidden mystic sword had hit the tower and then bounced back. Whoosh! Suddenly, a black light came from the sky. It was as fast as the wind. It made people's hearts tremble. Be careful of the attack. Tang Zheng saw through it at a glance. He protected Fang Shusha behind him. The hidden mysterious sword shone brightly. The heavenly fire gathered on the sword and burned fiercely. Roar! The hidden mysterious sword let out a high-pitched sword cry. It rose up and went straight to the sky. The hidden mystic sword and the black light clashed in midair. A blazing light exploded and flickered, like fireworks scattering in all directions. The hidden mysterious sword and the black light were in a stalemate. Neither of them could move forward. They kept consuming each other's energy. Hiss! Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. Could it be that this black light was also a sacred weapon? Otherwise, how could it possess such a powerful might? Me. Tang Zheng snorted and said, I want to see your true face. He moved his mind and poured his power into the hidden mysterious sword. Whoosh! The hidden mysterious sword shone brightly. It let out waves of sword cries. As for the heavenly fire, it was completely scattered. Tang Zheng and Fang Shisha finally saw everything clearly. There was nothing in this place except for the tower. It was all flat land. Bang! The black light suddenly exploded and disappeared. The hidden mysterious sword won. It trembled and flew up angrily. It went straight to the top of the tower and disappeared into the darkness. End of chapter. G_Cup Female Idol's first video. Valiantly wins the championship. Please follow the official WeChat account. Minevlu123. Press for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 1795. Tang Zheng and the hidden mystic sword were connected. Whatever the hidden mystic sword saw was what he saw. When the hidden mystic sword soared into the darkness, its entire body shone brightly and shot out in all directions. However, it did not completely disperse the darkness. The darkness seemed to have infinite power, blocking the sword light from moving forward. Tang Zheng frowned slightly. This darkness was very strange. However, Tang Zheng gradually saw the clues. This tower was actually made of bones, but the piles of bones had already turned black. If not for Tang Zheng's careful observation, he would not have been able to tell. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright as he watched this scene. White bones had built such a tall tower that reached the clouds. How many white bones did it take to kill so many living beings? Suddenly, Tang Zheng quivered and had a terrifying thought. This place has become a ruin. I don't see any other life. Could it be that all these life forms were used to build this tower? Hiss! Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. He was really frightened by this sudden thought. Fang Shisha saw the change in Tang Zheng and her heart trembled. She hurriedly asked, Tang Zheng, what's wrong? Tang Zheng shook his head. His expression was solemn. He did not say a word and said, let's go up. We must investigate thoroughly. Whoosh! The somersault cloud carried the two of them and soared into the sky. The surrounding darkness kept gathering. The heavenly fire turned into a huge fireball and covered the two of them, preventing the darkness from approaching. Boom boom! Suddenly, a loud sound seemed to come from the horizon. It made people's heartstrings tremble. Through the hidden mystic sword, Tang Zheng saw 2 rays of black light fall from the sky. The hidden mystic sword shone brightly and turned into a huge sword. The hidden mystic sword blocked the 2 rays of black light. However, its forward momentum was blocked. Coincidentally, the somersault cloud caught up. Tang Zheng grabbed the hidden mystic sword with his big hand. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The hidden mystic sword once again exploded with brilliant sword light and shattered the black light. Hao Tianwang is definitely at the top of the tower. It's just that this tower seems to have no end. I can't see Hao Tianwang at all. Damn it, Tang Zheng muttered angrily. Fang Shisha looked up at the sky. She couldn't see anything, but that dangerous aura made her heart tremble. She had an idea and said, we can't find Hao Tianwang, but why do we have to be so passive? We can take the initiative. What idea do you have? Tang Zheng asked in surprise. Fang Shisha pointed at the tower and said, this tower must be very important to Hao Tianwang. If we destroy this tower, won't he be able to appear? Ha ha ha, good idea. Tang Zheng immediately understood Fang Shisha's intention, so he gently touched the hidden mysterious sword and said, hidden mysterious sword, it's up to you. Wang! The hidden mysterious sword let out a high-pitched cry, breaking through the air. In the blink of an eye, it struck the black tower. Boom! The tower shook violently. Pieces of black bones were blown away, and a hole appeared in the tower. Tang Jing, you're courting death. Suddenly, a roar came from the sky. A huge figure swooped down with great momentum. It was terrifying. Tang Jing heard this and was happy, saying, Hao Tianwang, you've finally appeared. He was not afraid at all. Holding the hidden mysterious sword, he rushed into the sky. A sword light seemed to split the heaven and earth, fiercely chopping towards Hao Tianwang. Boom! Hao Tianwang's arm shook, and a pitch-black cloak rose from his back like a fluttering flag. A black light shot out from the cloak, blocking the hidden mysterious sword. At the same time, the air quickly solidified. The darkness in all directions seemed to have solidified, and quickly gathered towards Tang Zheng. Hey! Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows. He was a little surprised because Hao Tianwang used to be good at water-type divine arts. He used the ice sword to perfection, but this time, he kept using this black cloak. It was really strange. However, when he felt the change in the air, Tang Zheng suddenly realized that Hao Tianwang had evolved this divine art. The change in the air was the effect of water-type divine arts, but the power was even stronger. This air was like water. It was everywhere. When the air solidified, it was a very terrifying attack. Tang Zheng already felt the threat. Ka. The air quickly solidified, trapping Tang Zheng in the center. The flame of the heavenly fire was still burning and swaying, but it suddenly stopped as if it was frozen. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. He raised his eyebrows and shouted, "Break!" Whoosh! The hidden mysterious sword quickly slashed out countless swords in all directions. The sword light turned into balls of intense light. Bang bang bang! The air shattered. It was like the ice on a frozen lake being crushed. The air suddenly circulated. Charge! Tang Zheng roared. He held the hidden mysterious sword and rushed towards Hao Tianwang. Whoosh! Hao Tianwang's cloak shook and covered himself. The hidden mysterious sword hit the place where Hao Tianwang was standing, but it was empty. It did not hit Hao Tianwang at all. Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked around. Other than the dark air and the tall tower, there was no sign of Hao Tianwang. Where was he? Tang Zheng and Fang Shusha looked at each other. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, how can you do whatever you want in my place? You think you can kill me with this broken sword? You are really too naive. Hao Tianwang's arrogant laughter rang in their ears. They could not tell where he was. It was as if he disappeared, or it was as if he merged with the air. Don't waste your time looking for me. If I want you to see me, you can see me. If I don't want you to see me, it's useless even if you rack your brains. Hao Tianwang said proudly. Tang Zheng was completely focused. He firmly protected Fang Shusha and asked, Hao Tianwang, what are you doing? What is going on in this world? Hao Tianwang angrily snorted and asked, Tang Zheng, did my son die in your hands? That's right. You sent him to absorb the energy of the ghost world and destroy it. You destroyed hundreds of millions of lives in the ghost world. How can I just sit by and do nothing? He deserved to die. Moreover, he was killed by you. Tang Zheng said firmly. Nonsense. How could I kill him? Hao Tianwang defended himself. If you didn't send him to the ghost world, how could he have died? Tang Zheng retorted. Nonsense. He went to the ghost world willingly. Moreover, I gave him a sacred weapon to protect himself. He was killed by you. Tang Zheng, I want to avenge my son. Hao Tianwang's murderous aura surged. The air was filled with the smell of smoke and killing intent. Although my son is dead, he will be able to rest in peace after seeing my achievements in the underworld. Because, he has a part to play in this. Tang Zheng curiously asked, what are you plotting? What is this tower for? Hao Tianwang proudly said, when it's time for you to know, you will naturally know. You are just like Xiao Bai, wanting to get to the bottom of everything. In the end, you will lose your life here. What? Tang Zheng was shocked. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue. Chapter 1796. Tang Zheng's eyes were like torches as he stared into the darkness. He asked, what happened to Xiao Bai? Where is he? Hao Tianwang paused for a moment and grinned. You're so worried about him. You must be very close. Very good, very good. You'll meet soon. Xiao Bai was killed by you, right? Tang Zheng asked hysterically and angrily. He's not dead yet, but he's not far from it. Hao Tianwang said proudly. Tang Zheng sighed in relief. As long as Xiao Bai was not dead, then there was still a chance. He immediately asked, "Where is Xiao Bai?" "The top of the tower. If you want to witness his final death, then you'll have to hurry to the top of the tower. Otherwise, you'll miss this last chance," Hao Tianwang said gloatingly. Tang Zheng's head tightened and his face became very serious. Fang Shisha was shocked and urged, "Let's hurry to the top of the tower." Tang Zheng nodded lightly. Without another word, he held the hidden mystic sword and stepped on the somersault cloud. He turned into a shadow and soared into the sky. "Do you really think it's that easy to reach the top of the tower?" Hao Tianwang shouted. Whoosh! Darkness gathered from all directions and the light retreated step by step. In the end, it only retreated around Tang Zheng's body and could not shine any further. An invisible force was like a rope that tried to bind and imprison Tang Zheng. Fang Shisha's face changed as she felt the pressure. She also used her talisman to resist. She did not want to be a burden to Tang Zheng. The somersault cloud was not slow as it resisted the force of the imprisonment. Whoosh! The somersault cloud flew close to the top of the tower. The tower gradually shrank, but the force became stronger and stronger. It was evident from the somersault cloud's slow speed. Tang Zheng snorted. With a thought, he used the sky-swallowing technique. A black hole suddenly appeared in his palm and aimed at the top of the tower. Whoosh! The surrounding darkness was immediately swallowed into the black hole, and the terrifying power gradually dissipated. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. "I've finally found a way to restrain you. Hao Tianwang, have a taste of my sky-swallowing technique," Tang Zheng shouted. The sky-swallowing technique's power increased greatly, and the black hole rapidly expanded. Once darkness was sucked into the black hole, light gradually gained the upper hand, illuminating more areas. Tang Zheng took a closer look and finally saw the scene at the top of the tower clearly. Xiao Bai was being imprisoned by the black skeletons. The black skeletons were like maggots that wrapped tightly around him, not giving him any chance to escape. Whitey's face was deathly pale, and she was on the verge of death. She was already at the critical juncture of life and death. Tang Zheng's expression tightened as he roared, "Xiao Bai!" Xiao Bai opened his eyes with difficulty. When he saw Tang Zheng, his eyes lit up. He moved his lips and shouted weakly, "Master, Xiao Bai, I'm coming to save you. You have to hold on." Tang Zheng shouted. Without the mysterious force blocking him, the somersault cloud's speed increased. In the blink of an eye, he rushed to the top of the tower. When he looked down, he couldn't see the bottom of the tower at all. He didn't know how high the top of the tower was. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai were very close. Tang Zheng reached out his hand, trying to save Xiao Bai. Whoosh! An ear-piercing sound came from afar. A huge palm appeared between the two. The palm was as black as ink, but it was as big as a mountain. It slammed toward Tang Zheng. "Break!" Tang Zheng roared. The hidden mystic sword shone brightly. However, the hidden mystic sword was caught by the palm. At the same time, vine-like things extended from all directions. They were like thousands of arms, attacking Tang Zheng at the same time. Tang Zheng hurriedly said to Fang Shisha, "I'll stop Hao Tianwang. You go save Xiao Bai." "Yes." Fang Shisha nodded vigorously. She raised her magic treasure and attacked the black bones that trapped Xiao Bai. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal hitting metal rose and fell. Sparks flew everywhere. Crack. One of the black bones broke. Xiao Bai's expression relaxed. He seemed to be much more relaxed. Fang Shisha was overjoyed. This meant that it worked. She hurriedly comforted him, "Xiao Bai, hold on. I'll save you immediately." Whitey had a grateful expression on its face, but it was too weak to say anything. Hao Tianwang also saw this scene. He was shocked and angry. He roared, "Stop." The attack suddenly became stronger. Tang Zheng used the hidden mystic sword and resisted step by step. He was not at a disadvantage. After all, Tang Zheng's cultivation was in the saint realm. Hao Tianwang had a great advantage by relying on his mysterious magic. However, facing Tang Zheng, who was in the saint realm, he might not be able to gain an advantage. Seeing Fang Shusha's progress, Tang Zheng was relieved. He was very lucky to have brought Fang Shusha with him. Otherwise, with his own strength, he would not have the time to save Xiao Bai. Crack, crack, crack. Pieces of the black bones shattered and turned into fine powder. They drifted with the wind. Xiao Bai's complexion became better and better. Finally, the last piece of black bone shattered. Xiao Bai was finally completely free. His complexion had undergone a tremendous change. He was no longer on the verge of death. Instead, he was full of vitality. It turned out that the black bones were constantly devouring his vitality. Once his vitality was completely devoured, he would also become a black skeleton. If it were not for Xiao Bai's high cultivation and royal bloodline, he would have been killed. He jumped and rushed toward Hao Tianwang. He roared, "Hao Tianwang, I'll fight you to the death. Hurry up and release the 4 symbols." The 4 symbols. Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked around and did not see any trace of the 4 symbols. He hurriedly asked, "Where are the 4 symbols?" He was suppressed at the bottom of the tower. Without the 4 symbols as the foundation, the tower could not be built. Once the tower was completed, night would fill the world. The eternal night would descend. The eternal night would descend. Tang Zheng frowned in puzzlement. He did not understand the meaning of this sentence. Xiao Bai hurriedly explained, "Hao Tianwang is not willing to admit defeat. I don't know where he found this evil spell. He actually absorbs the energy of the ghost world to release the curse of the eternal night. Once the eternal night descends, there will be no day in this world. The land shrouded by night will become the land ruled by Hao Tianwang." Tang Zheng was struck with inspiration. He was overwhelmed with shock and asked, "You mean he can rule the land of night?" "Yes, he told me himself that he can control the darkness." "Look, isn't the darkness controlled by him?" Tang Zheng looked around. The darkness in the distance was like a tiger watching its prey. It had endless power. Tang Zheng had never heard of or seen this kind of spell. His heartbeat quickened as he asked, "Hao Tianwang, what is this eternal night spell? How did you get such an evil spell?" Hao Tianwang was proud of himself. His voice came from all directions and filled the huge space. "What do you mean by at the end of the road? There is a light at the end of the tunnel." "Tang Zheng, you forced me to the end of the road. You didn't expect this to give me a chance, did you?" "What chance?" "Someone showed me the right path and taught me the eternal night spell." G_Cup Female Idol's first video, valiantly wins the championship. Please follow the official WeChat account. Mindvlu123, press for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 1797. Someone had taught Hao Tianwang the eternal night technique. These words were earth-shattering, instantly attracting the attention of Tang Zheng and Fang Shusha. The two looked at each other and saw through each other's thoughts. This also meant that there was someone behind Hao Tianwang, giving him pointers. Who was this person? Why did he help Hao Tianwang? What ulterior motives did he have? Could it be that there was a third mysterious force in the realm beyond heaven besides Hao Tianwang and Xiao Bai? He had never heard Xiao Bai mention this before. Tang Zheng immediately looked suspiciously at Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai understood tacitly and hurriedly shook his head. "Master, I also don't know who Hao Tianwang is referring to." Tang Zheng's expression darkened slightly. "Hao Tianwang, why don't you find a reliable excuse? Who else in the realm beyond heaven is so powerful that they can give you pointers?" Tang Zheng purposely didn't believe him and tried to pry the secret out of Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang sneered. "You don't believe me, do you?" "I didn't believe it at first either, but the facts are right in front of you. You have no choice but to believe it." Xiao Bai flew into a rage. "Then who is the other party? You asked him to stand out in the open and instigate you from behind. What's so great about that?" Hao Tianwang was unmoved and said indifferently, "Even I don't know where he is, so how can I ask him to come out? After a slight pause, Hao Tianwang mocked, I can't be more clear about your little thoughts. You want to provoke the other party to come out, but unfortunately, you won't be able to do so. Xiao Bai's expression hardened. Master, who cares about the eternal night technique? Our top priority is to overthrow this tower and save the 4 symbols. Tang Jing secretly nodded and simply gave up on asking. Hao Tianwang, then I'll have a taste of your eternal night technique. Whoosh! A black hole appeared on Tang Jing's palm and began absorbing everything around it. The space around the black hole began to distort. Hao Tianwang still didn't show himself. He hid in the darkness and shouted, You want to break my eternal night technique? Dream on. Whoosh! Whoosh! Streaks of black light shot out from the tower and entered the pitch-black sky. Immediately, it was as if a curtain had been pulled down, and the world was completely plunged into darkness. The heavenly flame flickered incessantly, and the light was frozen. It was impossible for it to shine on other places. Xiao Bai leaped high into the air and charged into the darkness without any regard for his own safety. His magic treasure, the Bloodthirst Scepter, shot out one bloody line after another as it clashed and tangled with the darkness. Shua! The hidden mystic sword also flew up. Tang Zheng was multitasking. He used the hidden mystic sword and the sky-swallowing technique at the same time. A fierce battle stirred up this space, causing it to fluctuate violently. All of a sudden, Yuanying's avatar's voice rang out in Tang Zheng's mind, eager to give it a try. Multitasking. How can you do it without me? Let me lend you a hand. No need. Tang Zheng refused on the spot. Yuanying's avatar was his true trump card. He wasn't willing to use it unless it was absolutely necessary. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy to deal with once the enemy was on guard. Additionally, Tang Zheng still had strength to spare. There was no need for Yuanying's avatar to help him. Yuanying's avatar said lazily, Then let me know when you need me. With that, he lay down lazily in Tang Zheng's violet palace as if he didn't care at all. The darkness was like a rapidly expanding net. Tang Zheng tried to tear open an opening with the sky-swallowing technique and the hidden mystic sword in tandem. Although Hao Tianwang didn't appear, he gradually became apprehensive after seeing Tang Zheng show no signs of retreating. Just how did you do it? What's your cultivation level? Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. Hao Tianwang finally saw through the clues and said mysteriously, What do you think? You can't possibly be at the 9th rank of the Mahayana realm. Hao Tianwang came to this conclusion. That was because he was at the 9th rank of the Mahayana realm, and with the help of the Ebonite art, his combat strength had far surpassed the 9th rank. Even so, he still couldn't do anything to Tang Zheng. Didn't this mean that Tang Zheng's cultivation was far beyond the 9th rank of the Mahayana realm? His heart was shaken as a terrifying thought occurred to him. Could it be that you've reached that realm? That realm. Hao Tianwang didn't say it clearly because he wasn't sure what kind of situation and feeling it was. It was as though there was a layer of gauze separating him from the truth. Tang Zheng had already determined from these words that Hao Tianwang's cultivation hadn't reached the sage realm and was only enhanced by the Ebonite art. Immediately, he felt more at ease and said with a mysterious smile, It seems you know a lot. After saying this, Hao Tianwang was certain that Tang Zheng had reached that mysterious realm. His mind was in chaos because he was well aware of how powerful that realm was and had an innate fear of it. Unfair, too unfair. How old are you? You can actually break through the final barrier. I've been searching for so many years but to no avail, Hao Tianwang muttered with conviction. Tang Zheng had been paying attention to the surrounding movements all this time. Seeing Hao Tianwang's great emotional fluctuations, he thought that this was a good opportunity. It would be easy to reveal flaws as long as one's mind was in chaos. As expected, a slight fluctuation came from a corner of the sky. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. The hidden profound sword was like a scorching sun, shining with a dazzling light. Tang Zheng roared. Kill. Whoosh. The hidden profound sword pierced through the air and struck that corner. A miserable scream rang out as Hao Tianwang's battered figure appeared. His face was full of shock as he looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. Their eyes met. Tang Zheng was secretly delighted. His chance had come. He attacked Hao Tianwang like a gust of wind. Hao Tianwang's mind was in chaos. He didn't have any intention of staying. He only hoped to leave as soon as possible and save his life. But the hidden profound sword brought a trail of blood. Hao Tianwang risked injury and jumped into the darkness, disappearing without a trace. Tang Zheng, I'll be back. This sky beyond heaven will belong to me. Hao Tianwang's voice gradually faded until it disappeared. Xiao Bai anxiously shouted, Master, he escaped. Tang Zheng wanted to take advantage of the victory to pursue. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the sky. There was a rumbling sound, like a bolt from the blue. A large crack appeared in the sky, and then it shattered. The surroundings shook violently. This space was unstable and was about to collapse. Tang Zheng gave up on pursuing. He stared at the tower and shouted, Save the four symbols first. Boom! The hidden profound sword slashed the tower. A crack extended from the top to the foundation. There was a series of sounds, and the space completely collapsed. Tang Zheng's big hand slashed forward, and a spatial door appeared. He hurriedly shouted to Xiao Bai and Fang Shisha, You two go in first. He swooped down to the ground and saw the dying four symbols in the distance. He grabbed the four symbols and rushed into the spatial door. Chapter 1798. A number of figures jumped out of the spatial door and looked back at the gradually closing spatial door. Their hearts were filled with lingering fear, and their breathing had become much heavier. Tang Zheng calmed himself down and looked at the four symbols. How are you? The four symbols had recovered a bit of spirit after leaving the tower and said in shame, I'm fine. I'm sorry, it's because I'm useless that I fell into Hao Tianwang's hands. No, it's because I'm useless. I rushed over thousands of kilometers but fell into Hao Tianwang's trap. Not only did I put myself in danger, but I also almost killed the four symbols. Xiao Bai said impatiently, taking the initiative to shoulder the responsibility. Fang Shisha was kind-hearted and advised, You can't blame them. After all, Hao Tianwang is too cunning and powerful. After the group finished speaking, Tang Zheng looked around and teased, You want to shoulder the responsibility so badly? Xiao Bai and the four symbols lowered their heads. Keep your spirits up. Tang Zheng roared loudly, This isn't your fault. It's Hao Tianwang's unintentional scheme. Moreover, even I was surprised by his changes and breakthroughs. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Tang Zheng wouldn't have imagined that Hao Tianwang actually had such a trick up his sleeve. The Evernight art sounded very powerful. Moreover, he knew how powerful it was after trying it out. Who do you think is the one who taught Hao Tianwang the Evernight art? Tang Zheng asked curiously. The group glanced at each other in dismay. Little White and the four guardians glanced at each other and said, We don't know either, but one thing is certain. This person's natural disposition is cruel, and the Evernight art actually requires the sacrifice of so many lives to refine. From this, we can see that. Tang Zheng nodded secretly and said, Hao Tianwang's subordinates have all turned into black skeletons? No, there should be a part of it. Otherwise, how could he make a comeback? Xiao Bai denied. The four symbols chimed in, I was suppressed under the pagoda, so I felt it even more deeply. It was simply like hell. Darkness shrouded my surroundings, and it was like iron chains shackling me. Hao Tianwang said that he needed you as the foundation for the 10,000 Zhong Tower to be built from the ground. Now that you're out of danger, he's using the same trick again. How can he build the tower again? Tang Zheng asked doubtfully. The others also frowned. Obviously, they were troubled by this problem. Tang Zheng racked his brains but couldn't come up with anything after thinking for a long time. He said to Sai Xiong sternly, Sai Xiong, after we go back this time, you'll stay at home. You absolutely can't go out on your own and give Hao Tianwang an opportunity. Immediately, the four symbols leveled up. They were like national treasures that had to be protected. The four symbols also understood the seriousness of the matter and nodded in agreement. They glanced at the ruined Sky City, shook their heads, and left. Whoosh whoosh. A wave of spatial fluctuations came, and Hao Tianwang's figure appeared again. He glared fiercely in the direction Tang Zheng and the others left, gritting his teeth. Tang Zheng, you've ruined my plans again. You and I are irreconcilable enemies. Hao Tianwang growled angrily. The Eternal Night technique also failed. Wrong. Suddenly, a voice appeared out of thin air. It's not that the Eternal Night technique failed, but that you haven't cultivated the Eternal Night technique. Now that the 4 symbols are gone, how can I cultivate the Eternal Night technique? Hao Tianwang said in annoyance. Let me think about it. The other party seemed to be stumped by this problem. He muttered to himself, the 4 symbols are spiritual stones of heaven and earth, the only spiritual stone of heaven and earth in this sky beyond heaven. Since it's the only one, then there's no second one. What else can we do? Even if the sky beyond heaven doesn't, there are other worlds. The other party changed the topic, as if hope had been rekindled. Where? The human world. The human world? Yes, the stairway to heaven in the human world is also a spiritual stone of heaven and earth. It has infinite power and is perfect as the foundation of the tower. How do you know so much about the human world? There's nothing in the boundless world that I don't know. The other party laughed boastfully. Hao Tianwang had always been very curious about this mysterious helper. What was the other party's identity and why did he help him? He had tried to figure it all out before, but after much effort, he found that it was futile. He had no choice but to give up. But one thing was for sure, the other party was very resourceful. Even he was left in the dust. He was also very curious as to why the other party didn't directly make a move. Once the other party made a move, he could completely resolve the predicament and crisis in front of him. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Hao Tianwang never thought that he would become a marionette. He thought for a long time and finally compromised. Even if he was a marionette, as long as he could achieve his goal, there would be a day when the marionette could become the master. He was only temporarily using the other party. Perhaps, the other party was also using him. Both parties had ulterior motives, but they had a tacit understanding. Let's go to the human world. All problems will be easily solved, the other party egged him on. Hao Tianwang had no other choice but to follow suit. A spatial door appeared, and with a leap, he disappeared into it. Tang Zheng's group returned to the wilderness. Everyone's morale was greatly boosted after seeing them return unscathed. They all asked what had happened. Tang Zheng gathered everyone and explained his experience. Everyone was baffled after hearing this. They were all unfamiliar with this Evernite art and had never heard of it before. Tian Chanzi tilted his head and pondered for a while. Then, he waved his hand and said, regardless of what Evernite art it is, the most important thing is to find Hao Tianwang and eliminate this great threat. Even if there is an Evernite art, it will be useless. No. The Emperor of Heaven suddenly spoke up with a frown. Hao Tianwang isn't the most important person. The person who taught him the Evernite art is the most important person. The enemy we can't see is the most dangerous. These words echoed many others. The Empyrean fairy was the first to agree with her father's judgment. The Dragon King also agreed. That makes sense. Our dragon race travels through many worlds and we don't know anything about this Evernite art. Yet, that mysterious person is well versed in this art. This is enough to prove how extraordinary he is. Little White was confused and asked doubtfully, what's the background of that mysterious man? Why is he making an enemy out of us? This time, everyone shook their heads, especially Tang Zheng. Looking at his experiences along the way, he really did not have a corresponding enemy. Perhaps this is a new enemy, Tang Zheng guessed. That's the only way. The others agreed. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and looked at everyone. No matter who the other party is, we must first complete the task at hand. Our army came to the realm beyond heaven to eliminate Hao Tianwang. Although he has disappeared, there is no way he can escape. Perhaps he is hiding somewhere and brewing a new conspiracy. Therefore, we must dig him out even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground. No one objected. Immediately, the army moved out and scattered across the vast realm beyond heaven. They dug 3 feet into the ground to find Hao Tianwang's whereabouts. Chapter 1799. In the Human World. Mount Buzhou stood quietly in the depths of the innumerable great mountains. The top of the mountain was surrounded by clouds and mist, like a fairyland. Crack. A crack appeared in the sky, and Hao Tianwang's figure came out of the crack. He went through the space gate and came to the human world. The 2 worlds were separated. Without guidance, it was easy to get lost in the space turbulence, but Hao Tianwang succeeded at the first try. Because he had the help of the mysterious man, it seemed that any difficulty could be solved easily. Back then, it was easy for his son to travel to the ghost realm, and he succeeded at the first try. Hao Tianwang looked down at the vast land, and his eyes were full of surprise. Is this the place where the surviving member of the royal family is hiding? Hao Tianwang gnashed his teeth. In an instant, his hatred for the human world increased greatly, and he wanted to destroy the world immediately. He took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and followed the mysterious man's instructions, swooped down and rushed straight to Mount Buzhou. When he saw Mount Buzhou, he looked suspicious. This mountain was indeed too tall and majestic, but it was far from the dark stone of heaven and earth. Could he have made a mistake? How could there be a dark stone of heaven and earth here? Hao Tianwang doubted in his heart, but he immediately left this thought behind. In his mind, the mysterious man was too mysterious and powerful. It seemed that there was nothing in the world that he couldn't do. However, Hao Tianwang occasionally wondered why the mysterious man wanted to borrow his hand since he was so powerful. If he had any purpose, why didn't he just do it directly? Hao Tianwang didn't believe that Tang Zheng could resist the mysterious man. If it's really the mysterious man who did it directly, then it's none of my business. I should feel lucky. Heavenly King Hao suppressed his complicated thoughts and focused on Mount Buzhou. He flew a few laps around Mount Buzhou and gradually found some clues. The mysterious man was right. At first glance, Mount Buzhou doesn't look very special. However, once you really observe it, you can see that it is extraordinary. Outside the dross, there is gold and jade inside. He suddenly stopped and floated at the top of the mountain. A burst of light burst out from his eyes. He put his hands together, and the air between heaven and earth instantly froze. The peak of Mount Buzhou was already covered in snow. At this moment, the cold wind also stopped, and the fluttering snowflakes froze in midair. The corners of Hao Tianwang's mouth curled up into a cold smile as he roared, "Wind, snow, ice." As soon as his voice fell, a cold wind blew, whistling through the world. Snowflakes also floated up. White snow rose from the ground, breaking away from the gravity and soaring into the sky. At the same time, the ice layer that covered the mountain also rumbled, and huge pieces of ice soared up. The ice sword is complete. Hao Tianwang made a grabbing motion in the air. The wind, snow, and ice all gathered in his palm and were firmly grasped by him. A sword hilt gradually took shape, followed by the sword body. Not long after, a glittering ice sword was forged, flashing with a soul-stirring cold light. "Open!" Hao Tianwang roared, and the ice sword slashed down from above. A cold light rushed out from the ice sword, and in an instant, the cold light slashed toward Mount Buzhou. Boom! Mountain rocks flew everywhere, and a hole gradually appeared at the top of the mountain. This hole quickly spread downward, and easily destroyed all the way to the foot of the mountain. Rumble! The foot of Mount Buzhou exploded, making earth-shattering noises as if there was an earthquake. A ray of white light pierced through the hole like a sharp sword, shooting straight up into the sky. At the same time, a vast and mysterious power surged out, filling the space between heaven and earth. Hao Tianwang's eyes lit up, and he laughed contentedly. "Ha ha ha, the heavens are helping me. There really is heaven and earth obsidian in Mount Buzhou." He couldn't be more familiar with this energy. It was his target. Who dares to destroy Mount Buzhou? An angry roar sounded. Hao Tianwang's laughter came to an abrupt end, and he widened his eyes in surprise, looking around for the source of the voice. "I am the mountain god of Mount Buzhou. How dare you destroy Mount Buzhou? You have evil intentions, and I'll kill you without mercy." The mountain god's voice sounded. If Tang Zheng heard this voice, he wouldn't be unfamiliar with it. He had received help from the mountain god before. Mountain god? Hao Tianwang frowned suspiciously, and asked as if he was talking to himself, "What is a mountain god?" "A mountain god is the god who protects Mount Buzhou." "Haha, god. Is there really a god in this world? You think you're scaring a 3-year-old child?" "Humph, what kind of thing dares to play tricks in front of me, Hao Tianwang?" Hao Tianwang spat disdainfully, and said coldly, "I don't care what you are. I'll destroy your body and soul first." Whoosh! The ice sword slashed down again, and this time it flew out, penetrating the crack in the mountain, and disappeared in the white light. Boom! The white light trembled, and a cracking sound came from Mount Buzhou. Rocks quickly rolled down from the top of the mountain, and not long after, Mount Buzhou actually disintegrated. Large pieces of rocks fell from Mount Buzhou, and fell to the ground. Immediately, the surroundings of Mount Buzhou seemed to have turned into craters, and each one of them was a shocking sight. Not long after, Mount Buzhou completely disintegrated, and the majestic peak turned into a pile of rubble. It was earth-shattering, and caused a large chain reaction. There was an earthquake in the 100,000 mountains, and with a rumble, cracks spread out in all directions from Mount Buzhou. However, Hao Tianwang didn't pay attention to these minor details. His attention was focused on the dazzling white light in the rubble. There was an ice sword in the middle of the white light, and it was Hao Tianwang's sword. The ice sword stopped, and the tip of the sword released a chilling light, but it still couldn't move forward. A large hand stretched out from the ground, and firmly grasped the ice sword. Heavenly King Hao's eyes lit up as he stared at the hand. He laughed in surprise and said, "Haha, it really is a heaven and earth mystic stone. I didn't expect such a huge heaven and earth mystic stone to be hidden under Mount Buzhou. The heaven and earth ore is indeed extraordinary, and has its own consciousness. What mountain god, isn't this a heaven and earth ore?" Boom! An imposing figure stood up from the white light, and his whole body released a dazzling white light. It was a stone man that looked like one of the 4 symbols. He was completely made of heaven and earth ore, and his whole body emitted a mysterious and powerful aura. If Tang Zheng saw this scene, he would definitely be taken aback. He would never have thought that the mountain god of Mount Buzhou was a heaven and earth ore, and had magical powers like the 4 symbols. He was the foundation of Mount Buzhou. The mountain god opened his eyes wide, and his eyes released a white light. He stared angrily at Hao Tianwang, and asked, "Who are you?" "Haha, I'm going to be your master soon. It's a waste for you to hide under Mount Buzhou. I'm going to take you to see a wider world. You're going to make contributions and conquer the world," Heavenly King Hao said in high spirits. Chapter 1800. The mountain god angrily roared, "In your dreams, I will never be used by you." The mountain god's whole body emitted a bright white light as it quickly grew. It was as if it was standing between heaven and earth as it turned into a giant. Boom! The air was compressed, creating bursts of explosions. The giant palm fiercely slapped towards Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang did not mind as he madly laughed. "The more you resist, the more powerful you are. The more powerful you are, the more valuable you are to me." Buzz! The ice sword rotated as ice fragments swirled in the air, creating an ice bloodstorm. The mountain god's other hand was holding the ice sword, but it was unable to resist this terrifying power. It was also rotated and twisted into a strange angle. Roar! The mountain god unwillingly roared as the giant palm slapped down and hit the ice sword. Boom! The dazzling sword light burst out and quickly exploded, turning into an ice storm that engulfed the mountain god. The omnipresent pressure gathered from all directions and fiercely pressed down on the mountain god. The mountain god continuously roared as he straightened his body. Bang! Suddenly, one of the mountain god's legs knelt down and his knee hit the ground, creating a huge pit. "Who are you?" the mountain god angrily asked. "I am your master," Hao Tianwang proudly said. His face turned cold as he shouted, "Kneel!" Bang! The other knee also hit the ground, kneeling on both knees as he stared at Hao Tianwang in fear. "Surrender." Hao Tianwang opened his hands and a mass of black gas spread out from his palms and turned into a black line that swam towards the mountain god from all directions. It was like a poisonous snake or a chain that quickly trapped the mountain god. No matter how he struggled, he was unable to break free from these black lines. The mountain god was tied up and could only roar unwillingly, but to no avail. The black line rose up along the mountain god's tall body and directly spread to his head. The mountain god seemed to be resisting, but to no avail. He could only watch as the black line drilled into his forehead. The mountain god's struggle immediately slowed down a lot. Finally, it calmed down and quietly knelt on the ground, unable to make any more waves. Hao Tianwang was like the creator, slowly flying in front of the mountain deity. With a hook of his finger, a black line drilled into the mountain deity's eyebrows. The mountain god suddenly trembled, and his facial expression changed dramatically. A black light appeared in his eyes, and his eyes were completely filled with darkness. From now on, you are my subordinate. We will conquer the entire world. Hao Tianwang said passionately. The mountain god was already prostrating himself on the ground, like a servant facing his master. He said respectfully, "Yes." Heavenly King Hao laughed maniacally. "In this world, who can stop me? Tang Zheng, just you wait. I'm going to kill you right away." Rumble. Suddenly, a series of loud noises rose and fell, resounding through the 100,000 mountains as if an earthquake had occurred. The mountain god rose from the ground and slowly flew up with Hao Tianwang. In the distance, many people stopped to watch. They saw an indomitable giant slowly rise into the sky and fly into the 9 heavens. That huge figure was like a mountain peak, leaving an indelible impression in the hearts of countless people. What is that? Everyone's mind was greatly shaken, and their hearts were in turmoil. Many people rushed towards the 100,000 mountains. These were the martial artists and cultivators who stayed behind. Before they even got close, they saw a space door appear in the 9 heavens. What is that? Many people saw the space door for the first time. They were shocked, speechless. It was as if a big hole opened in the sky. Before anyone could figure out what was going on, a world-destroying attractive force appeared. Whoosh! These people could not stand steadily and were sucked into the space door. Ah ah ah! Screams resounded through the world one after another. The people in the 100,000 mountains were in a terrible situation. Not only the people who flew over, but also the monsters on the ground also flew towards the space door. They could not resist this force of attraction at all. The mountain god stopped in front of the space door, and those people and monsters were sucked into the space door. The next scene was that they were spat out in an instant, turning into piles of black bones that were attached to the mountain god. The mountain god's appearance was even taller, and it emitted a chilling aura. This scene scared everyone out of their wits. They all wanted to find Tang Zheng, the backbone, but he had already gone to the heavens beyond heaven, so there was no way to inform them. Ha ha ha, the heavens beyond heaven has searched for this world for so many years, and now I've finally set foot on the land of this world. This is really a good world, and it can continuously provide me with raw materials. Hao Tianwang was proud and roared non-stop. It was like thunder rolling in the sky. The world suddenly became like the end of the world. If Yang Qingyi saw this scene, she would definitely understand that the scene of the end of the world in her prophecy was quite consistent with this scene. The heavens beyond heaven, the barbarian land. Tang Zheng paced back and forth with a cold expression. The inescapable net had been cast, and even the ruins of the city in the sky had been searched, but there was no trace of Hao Tianwang and his men. Many people guessed that his men might have all died and turned into piles of black bones. Tang Zheng did not comment because no one knew how many men Hao Tianwang had, and that tower was really too tall. He did not know how many people's bones were needed to build such a high tower. Hao Tianwang had been missing, and this was what worried him the most. He could not guess what Hao Tianwang was up to. Could it be that he has already escaped? Li Xiaotian suddenly had an idea and said, "Escaped? Where can he escape to? The heavens beyond heaven is only so big." Xiao Bai disagreed. Tang Zheng's head flashed with a touch of light, as if he had been enlightened, and looked at Li Xiaotian meaningfully. Li Xiaotian winked at him playfully. You mean he escaped from the heavens beyond heaven? Li Xiaotian nodded heavily and said, yes, since we can come to the heavens beyond heaven, then he can also escape from the heavens beyond heaven. Tang Jing suddenly realized that with Hao Tianwang's understanding of the law of space, it was entirely possible for him to open the space door and escape to other worlds. Then which world will he escape to? Tang Zhang asked curiously. The world of spirits and souls? Dizang of Gugurio said, but immediately shook his head and denied it. The world of spirits and souls was greatly damaged, and it was impossible for it to be Hao Tianwang's target. The human world. Tian Chanzi said the result that Tang Zheng did not want to see the most. As soon as this remark came out, the others were shocked, and their faces changed greatly. After pondering for a long time, they echoed, yes, there is such a possibility, it is very possible. Tang Zheng's face changed greatly, and said, we can't sit still and wait for death. We can't find Hao Tianwang's whereabouts, and we can't stay here forever. After all, if Hao Tianwang takes drastic measures, it will cut off our retreat, and the impact will be extremely serious. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,